different winners and a lot of different storylines from struggles from the defending champ to early rises from several new drivers that we have yet to see make a full-time resume. What we think of what we can expect here at Chicagoland. Now that we're here for the first time in a while.
Yeah, happy to be back here in Chicagoland here, Kenneth, and do have a lot to unpack. We've had a couple of races under our belt now. We've had a lot of things going on at the Richmond Raceway last week, a lot of things that we'll delve into here in our pre-race show. But I'm excited to see what this race will bring to us as we're not in the playoffs anymore. This race was the playoff opener last time around in Season 6. Here we are entering the middle portion of the regular season, so we'll just have to see if Brandon Hawkins can finish one spot better, as that last time we were here, it was Scott Healy who took the win.
He's won the last 2 races in a row, which means a lot, Keelan, because it shows his specialty at different types of tracks, and our last 2 have been completely different. Watkins Glen in late October, then Richmond just shy of Halloween night, and we've got Chicagoland now. Not our first mile-and-a-half trip of the schedule, but for a lot of guys, they may have their bearings together in that sense. Obviously, trying to dethrone Brandon Hawkins, but Chicagoland being this early in the schedule this time around in comparison to last season where it was the first round of the playoffs, very big difference mentality-wise for the field.
Yeah, big shift. This one going to be right in the first third of the regular season. Our second mile-and-a-half trip since Las Vegas, which was almost a month ago that we saw Lawson Peel win at, and then we take it to the Magic Mile in New Hampshire next week. So it's a very diverse schedule. We've been going to a lot of different racetracks in the last several weeks, but we return to a mile-and-a-half that most guys should know their way around for the most part tonight, and I think that's going to create a lot of opportunities for a lot of different guys to get a win tonight.
It's a very abrasive track. That's something that we'll tell you about over the course of the night in our pre-race show and over the course of the race. This one has a real knack of eating up the tires and giving the strategy a call as well. Let's get a look in the rear view mirror where Francisco Ewing Keelan got to call the action from the virtual Richmond Raceway. It was a chaotic one, and it started with Brandon Hawkins on the front row.
And trouble immediately on the start for Lawson Field. Lost a couple of positions getting up to speed, but was able to do a good enough job. After that, you see the first caution coming out here. Jaden Porter spins with contact from the 13 of Craig Lautenschlager, and Kevin D'Elia, our in-race reporter in that race, would end up having his own issues the rest of the evening.
And that was really the incident on lap 90 that brought this thing to a crazy last 110 laps. It was a fairly clean opening start to the day, but it would turned into caution after caution for these last 100 laps. Kyle Benson in a bit of trouble there right after halfway. He got up there, and then a little bit of beef happening between Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Tyler Murray. They got into each other several times throughout the night. This was the second incident going into turn 1 and 2. They both have a couple penalties to their record going into tonight, but it was all Brandon Hawkins to get his second consecutive win in the 4-Wide Racing League, as he got another one done at Richmond and went to Paul's Setup Shop Victory Lane.
And that makes it 2 consecutive seasons to which Brandon has been able to win 2 consecutive races. Just shows you how strong he's been over the course of his short but very stellar 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series career. He was very stellar at Richmond and at Chicagoland. The last time we were here, he finished second to Scott Healy. That race was a really big one. And while Chicagoland has tossed a lot of drivers between the anguish of heartbreak and the feeling of victory at the end of a long and grueling race, Scott Healy, out of all drivers, was able to create a historic battle at the end of it, while also breaking a historic winless streak in the series.
Hawkins slides up the racetrack in turns 1 and 2, and immediately we're going to go 3 wide for the lead on lap 1.
The battle for the lead, Eric Schaefer moves past his teammate, and the 3 car of Schaefer to the lead. Brandon Hawkins is getting caught up by Scott Healy, who has turned on the jets deep in this run. Hawkins could perform the crossover, but Scott Healy makes it a new lead change here. Lap 134, Hawkins gonna fight right back on the outside to turn 1. Call it a winless streak over. Scott Healy comes out of turn 4. He's victorious from Chicagoland. And if we're talking winless streaks, we have to talk about these several drivers. While Scott Healy and Tyler Murray were able to snap really long winless streaks last season, Francisco, these guys are still waiting for their time. It's a healthy mix between guys who have won either in a lower division series like the Trucks or ARCA series in 4-wide history, yet to win a cup race, or guys that have yet to win in any series of 4-wide at all. You look at some of those names, some of them surprising. Curtis Kelly specifically at 133, but these are guys that would desperately want to win. They can get it this season, and it may be the beckoning call here at Chicagoland if they can get it done.
And I'll tell you what, Kenneth, the driver that most stands out on that list is Curtis Kelly, because he has been one of the best drivers this particular season. I definitely sense that that driver, the 71, is going to have his opportunity to get his first win in the Cup Series season. Remember, I believe it was back in Season 3 or so, he got a victory at the Myrtle Beach Speedway in what was then the ARCA Series, so still has not won one in the top series. I think Curtis Kelly, with the speed he's shown, the performances he's had, he's definitely on the card for potentially getting his first win sometime this season.
And we've interviewed him a couple times throughout the season, most notably last week at Richmond Raceway in our Dropping the Hammer pre-race show, where he had finished several of these events inside the top 10. Richmond was the same way. He's been so consistent, and he told us last week that he's been really happy to see the season unfold the way that it has. He's been really strong with the next-gen car, and a good sign for him, he is second in practice as we run it with about 13 and a half minutes remaining. So there is some good news for not stonks, but still kind of stonks, and the Canadian Curtis Kelly, if he can get it done. We'll talk about consistency. Another driver has beat that mark over the course of the campaign thus far, and it is your Season 5 champion, Jaden Porter, who will join us now in the broadcast booth. First of all, welcome, Jaden. We're glad that you're taking some time to talk with us in the moments before the green flag drop and, of course, qualifying, where you guys are going to get focused and ready for this race. You have been at the top of the point standings for a little while now, several podiums on the season. What do you make of what's been going on so far and how you can parlay the momentum from here on out, starting tonight?
Yeah, we've had a lot of good momentum in the beginning of this season. Basically finished top 5 every race besides Daytona. So, got that confidence for me. The race tonight, I don't know how good I'm going to be tonight. These tight setups, which the car tonight is really tight, don't really fall into my playing style with this car, but hopefully we'll be good tonight. I don't know.
And I know you told us in the broadcast booth at Auto Club Speedway when you finished on the podium there, you said that you were a little jealous of your newer teammates getting the stardom and getting to win this early on in the campaign, but you've shown your strength no matter what track we're at. Several top 5s, multiple podiums on the way. How hungry are you for a win? Because it's been a little while since Dover last season, but how hungry do you get for a win like this to lock yourself into the playoff format that we have this time?
I've been hungry ever since last season ended. Getting hungrier each week, finishing second and third. But man, I really want to win. It's been, like you said, it's been way too long since I've won a race that I deserved at least, and I want to get back to victory lane and prove that I can win races still.
Well, Jaden, we've got Chicagoland tonight. You said you're not really sure how your performance will fare here. It's a very different way this next-gen car handles in comparison to, the Xfinity Series car. So what notes have you taken in practice, and what will you try to learn over the course of the race to get it dialed in?
Just taking care of the right front and keeping track position. It's going to be really hard to pass. I think if you get clean air late, you cannot give it up at all. So just figuring out how I can keep my right front on it without losing 10 spots saving tires. So I feel like if I can keep track position and save my tires, well, I'll be in contention for a win maybe.
Well, Jaden, we really appreciate the time. We know this season has gone on the uphill track. Hopefully it may result in a win tonight from the Chicagoland Speedway. Best of luck on track. We'll see you there.
All right, thank you, man.
That's Jaden Porter for KBueno Racing Senior, the newer echelon of BBR driving. We know that KBueno Racing Junior is a part of this series as a newer team. 2 of those drivers already with wins. Steven Maggio at Auto Club, Steven Stempian when we dropped the green flag, and took the checkered at Daytona to kick off the year. Well, we've had a ton of things go down on the season already. Plenty of storylines with Ethan Fonseca Moreno, the defending series champion. His championship hangover has been delaying itself week by week. And Tyler Murray, who's been at the helm of this series ever since its beginning. Back in 2020, they had a bit of a clash back at Richmond Raceway last week. Take a look. And this was in turns 3 and 4, midway through the race when the cautions were flying a ton. Tyler Murray got spun around, and Moreno seemed to have been the accuser there of the situation, saying that Murray came down. Murray in turn said that he's just the kid that gets everything in this series, it feels like. And then a bit of payback there in turn 1, a bit of a tap to the left rear quarter panel. Moreno was able to save it. Murray was not. It was not a lot of fun, Francisco, for the driver of the 57 nor the 36, and that leads us to what I call the laundry list. All the penalty reports given by league owners and admins after Richmond Raceway. Several of them, including Tyler and Ethan, for their respective causes last week.
Yeah, this is definitely a long list of penalties. There was so much going on in just that second half of the race. We had a Hack News article that came out almost immediately. Thank you, Kyle Benson, for that one. But you see there, Lance Hill still has to serve that EOL and drive-through he got a couple weeks ago. It's been a while since we've seen the one car in a race, so he still has to serve that penalty. Tyler Murray, Ethan Fonseca, they both have those penalties, particularly from the second incident. Tyler was ruled as the fault in that first incident. Race admins found out as he abstained from that decision. Kevin D'Elia, Tony Kivitt each have EOLs, and I believe there is some more penalties, but that's all we have right now. But Kenneth, it's still a lot, especially out of one particular race, and it just goes to show that at any moment anything can happen to any of these drivers. It's not like we just go in here and race and nothing happens. You have to make sure that you can keep your car clean and that you avoid getting involved in incidents, because if you get into these incidents, you'll find yourself not just getting EOLs, not just getting on probation. All that ties into the penalty license point system, which determines how often you get those kind of penalties, and if you even require a suspension.
That is true, and Tyler has told us that he will make amendments to this license penalty point system, especially after what happened at Richmond, where they had to deal a lot of penalties and review a lot of cases with the accidents going down on the speedway. However, with that license penalty point system, you got to be really careful about what you do from here on out. Specifically, Tyler and Ethan, if they continue to find themselves in incidents, whether it be through fault or intention, then obviously they will get penalized as such. Those penalty points will build up, and it will not be fun. Lance Hill still has yet to show up for a race, and since he picked up the incident penalties and all of the penalties given to him overall, he theoretically still needs to serve an end-of-line penalty and a drive-through once we take the green flag. He is not in this session tonight. Again, he has not showed up, so we're not entirely sure when he will return to the series. As for all of those other guys, we may see them at the back of the field and see the 57, the 36 come down pit road, presumably on lap 1, just to get that black flag done and dusted. Well, Keelan, we talk about Chicagoland Speedway, its first visit since the Season 6 playoffs. What is it like to be around this Chicagoland Speedway at 1.5 miles?
The 1.5 miles, a fairly new one, opened in 2001 in the Joliet, Illinois area, just outside of the big city of Chicago. You got 18 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 4, 11 in the tri-oval, and those turns, they have created some iconic racing moments here at Chicago. You think back to 2014, the first year of the Gen 6. We had a great restart battle there. Then Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, they had their great duel here. Many iconic moments here in Chicago, and Francisco gave us the opportunity to see what a lap is like around here.
Yeah, it is not an easy lap around here. This track surface is worn out, so there are its fair share of bumps, and you guys mentioned that it was a tight racetrack, and you can tell, look how much wheel was into the corner there just to make sure it would stay on the bottom. You have a curved back straightaway unique to this racetrack. You have to put just a little bit of wheel. It's anything but straight, and right here, just bump, bump, bump. Look at that, how the car goes over those bumps. It can step out from under if you're not careful going through those corners, or it could shoot you up to the wall. It really is treacherous in 3 and 4.
That is a lap around the Chicagoland Speedway. Thank you, Francisco, but you're right. We were talking about it pre-race just before we went live here on the KBueno Racing Network about just how planted this car is. This fixed setup on iRacing is actually probably glued to the floor. It is, you feel the diffuser hitting the asphalt as you're touching it and hitting those bumps specifically in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But this race, Keelan, will also come down to the lines you use. We've seen that already in practice. Several guys already experimenting with the very bottom near that white line, a little bit near the middle, some all the way up near the outside wall. Something that we'll see plenty over this race, and something that was really a feature of last season's finish between Hawken and the winner, Scott Healy.
It's a big multi-groove racetrack, and that's going to be something that we're watching all day. But it's also very bumpy in these corners, Kenneth, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as we get closer to the show. But there are bumps up on the top side of this racetrack, and a big one in 3 and 4 that is going to make driving this racetrack difficult, especially in these next gens. They feel kind of planted to the ground, but that back end, it can snap out from you just so quickly. Anything can happen. It's going to be a difficult race to manage these race cars, because the one league race I did here in Next Gen Chicago, I couldn't figure it out. So we'll see how these guys fare this evening.
It's hard for me too, but it is a fun track to drive, very rewarding when you do get it right, Francisco. And to say that this is one of the most abrasive 1.5 mile tracks on the schedule is, to be an understatement. It is very, very tough to drive. And, you look at Atlanta as well from the 2008 scan. That track is also vicious to put a race car on and go full speed over the course of a long run. But Chicagoland has proven time and time again, probably has that balance the most between the strategic tire side of things, but the great racing we have alongside it. Keelan mentioned already the several battles that we've had between Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson, the Alex Bowman win, several guys going slide jobbing all over the place, doing highline moves to make passes. It's a really fun track to drive.
You're right about that, and the tire surface, the way it wears these tires, the age of the surface, it's all up there. It's probably one of those top 5 on the schedule we have. You think about Auto Club, the 2008 Atlanta, as you mentioned, Darlington, and of course, my personal favorite, the Homestead Miami Speedway, to crown our champion at the season's end. Those 5 racetracks are all very different from one another in their individual styles, but they all share that characteristic of worn-out surface, an old surface, and extreme tire wear. And they usually produce some of the best racing you'll see all season.
Well, as we get this race almost ready from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway, we'll figure we'll bring another driver in and talk with them, see what their overall thoughts are on this race and how it will all fare. We'll talk to the rookie Juan Escamilla from Dark Horse Racing, get his thoughts on Chicagoland. Juan, first of all, thank you for joining us. It has been a really wild season for you, still getting used to the 4-wide competition and this series. You take on Chicagoland tonight, our first proper, or our second proper 1.5 mile race of the schedule. What do you have in mind before this one?
It's going to be a really tough race, really. I have to prioritize qualifying up front, so I'm able to have the track position, because the further you start from pole, it's going to get harder with the dirty air. And in the different lines, you kind of run out of options when you get further back from the field. So being able to get my qualifying lap put together and hopefully try to save the right front tire as much as it can, because this is a pretty abrasive surface and a hard track on tires. So yeah, just focusing on the qualifying effort and making sure I'm near the front early on.
And if there's anything we learned from Las Vegas earlier this season, is that draft really does matter, especially on the short run, where we saw you and plenty of others mix it up in a pack of maybe 5, 6, 7 or more cars, 2 or 3 wide, fighting for top 5 and top 10 positions. How do you try and balance the aggression with the draft that you've got to keep in the pack, with also saving the tires and making sure you can last just in case the race goes into a long run?
Just making sure I'm able to pace in front of from the car ahead, and making sure I'm able to maintain a gap and try not to scrub those tires. I have my tire sound all the way up and my engine sound all the way down. So I'm just listening to that tire and hearing if it's scrubbing or if it's spinning out or whatever. So yeah, just making sure I'm able to maintain pace with the leaders and making sure I'm not scrubbing any of the tires on any of the corners of the car.
Well, Juan, we certainly appreciate the time. We know you and the rest of the field will have a handful driving these race cars. I surely will not envy you guys on the racetrack tonight, but surely it'll be a lot of fun. Juan, thank you so much, and best of luck on track.
All right, thank you.
That is Juan Escamilla for the Dark Horse Racing team, one of the newer franchises in this 4-wide series. They expanded to 5 from just 1 from that Trevor Haley entry that used to be there last season with the Xfinity Series cars. Trevor trying to rewrite a bit of the history here. He spun on the back straightaway and got Tyler Murray and several others involved in that opening playoff race when he was one of those blue banner drivers. We'll see how him and the rest of the field fare on when we take the green flag from Joliet, Illinois. That'll do it for our coverage of the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show. Thank you so much for joining us. But on the other side, in several moments, 4-wide racing from Chicagoland comes up next. available now.
My name is Francisco Bacallao, driver of the number 30 Celsius Toyota. I have a lot of things to balance between work, being a student pilot, and of course, having iRacing to do on the side. How do I manage all that? Celsius.
Celsius is the key to getting these things done for me. Whether it's at work, at home, while I'm driving, whatever. Whichever flavor you want, whichever one appeals to you best, that's the one that gets it done.
So if you want a good option to drink, choose Celsius.
Always a new challenge when you take on a brand new track, especially when you haven't visited it in a while. Several guys looking to capture victory once again. Brandon Hawken looking to become the first driver in a while to go 3 in a row in the series. He's been so dominant at Watkins Glen at Richmond. He can possibly get that trifecta tonight. Then Scott Healy, who was able to break a very long winless streak in this series last season, has the possibility to do it all over again. And Tyler Murray, the league owner, battered and bruised from last week, but still looking for a bit of redemption here in Illinois. Chicagoland Speedway, the next host of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, and it all starts right now.
That's my bonus for my quota. Boy, don't nobody. I just get a check in the jail with the set. All we do is rap. They worry about next. Yeah. I'm just making plays, Broadway in the flesh. On us. This right here with the on us.
A hidden gem sits not too far away from Grant Park and the Bean. Not known for its pageantry or magnificence, but for its speed, where the Field of Dreamers makes their lone stop of the season in the Prairie State. Welcome to Joliet, Illinois, the site of the virtual Chicagoland Speedway, where tonight we welcome you to the 7th race of the Season 7 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. And welcome to the coverage on the KBueno Racing Network. We are again so happy to have you joining us for this illustrious night of Wednesday night sim racing, where alongside Francisco Bacallao and Keelan Belsha in the broadcast booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, let's start with you. It's our second mile-and-a-half trip of the season. Las Vegas showed us many notes. Stay in the draft, save the tires, utilize the strategy. We may see a lot of that and more at Chicagoland that could give us another stunner of a finish.
Gave us all of that, but also it reminded us that Lawson Field is still the guy in this series. He captured his first win of the season after struggling in the first couple of races and has since been able to put together some decent results to help improve his overall season standings. But namely, the guy I think about when it comes to Chicagoland here, Kenneth, is a driver who won here in Season 4, Colin Forrester. Colin Forrester has not won in a handful of seasons, going back to the Season 5 finale at Homestead. He's looking to see if he can return to victory lane at a track that he's won at before.
A hefty list of heavy hitters, guys who have won here before. But Keelan, this is a track that really hasn't featured as much in overall 4Wide history. It's a really stark contrast to last week at Richmond, where it's been a part of literally every single season. Chicagoland has been around here and then not. We had Season 4 that it was there. Season 5 it was not. Season 6 or Season 5, it also was not. Season 6 was there. Season 7, it's there. Season 2 was there, and Season 3 was not. So it is just a back and forth of whether the track is featured on the schedule or not. Does that play a role at all in the motivation or the mindset of the drivers, as they don't have a lot of track time with this speedway in general?
I don't think it does a lot, Kenneth, because this track is so comparable to others like a Las Vegas that you come out to. It's a mile and a half, very similar shape. Only difference is maybe a little curvature in the backstretch, but it drives pretty much the same. And in these next gens, they drive very similar across the board at these mile and a half racetracks. So I think these guys are coming into the race today knowing for the most part what it's going to drive like and what they have to do to execute and run well this evening. I think these guys got nothing to worry about. This is one that most should be able to compete well at.
And as we look at this 2024-25 schedule, we dive deeper into the heart of this regular season. Chicagoland is what faces us next here in early November. And then we go into the short track scene. New Hampshire up north in the east. That'll be about 150 laps there. That will be a surely tough race. We had a rough one there with the next gens last time we were there. Charlotte Motor Speedway then hosts the next round at another mile-and-a-half track. We sort of go on a mile-and-a-half spree from Charlotte to the old Atlanta track, which, much like Chicagoland, is really loose to drive, and it's really tough over the course of a long run. Martinsville makes its first appearance in many years in this series. It'll be probably either a thunderous comeback for that track or maybe just a roar that'll make us go away from it. Talladega, Darlington, Kansas lead us into the All-Star race where we return to Sin City and Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But that's really where we get into the heart of the regular season, where we start diving into more of the playoff conversation, Francisco. And already we've crowned several different winners that have a shot, have a spot in the playoffs now. How often will we probably see the chance of another new winner taking the stage here at Chicagoland and being able to add their name to the championship postseason list?
I mean, it's very possible we can continue to see different winners, but at some point there will be guys getting into victory lane repeatedly, as we've already seen. Brandon Hawkins go back-to-back. He has to make a certain amount of starts since he missed a couple of races early on in the season. The exact number is to be determined, but I'm pretty sure he can't miss more than 4 between now and Daytona at the end of the regular season. But, you know, there's plenty of guys that still have not gone to victory lane. You have Jaden Porter, you have Ethan Fonseca Moreno, you have drivers like Kyle Benson, you have Colin Forster, AJ Green, just a number of guys that have not gone to victory lane that you expect them to get wins, and those will take up this playoff spot. So with 15 spots available and currently 4 being taken, of course Hawkins still not exactly confirmed because of the whole start situation, but you have 4 confirmed taken, possibly 5, at least 10 spots available, so it can fill up pretty quickly if you're not careful, especially when we move into the middle portion of the schedule where it's mostly mile and a half between now and the end of January.
It'll get scary, but the real question, like you mentioned, is who can stop Brandon Hawkins. He's won the last 2 in a row, both in pretty dominating fashion. Obviously, it took a little longer for him to get the win at Richmond with all of the cautions and the overtimes that we had there. But for the most part, Brandon had led from the start to the finish. The same at Watkins Glen. He has the chance to go 3 in a row, something that's really unprecedented in this series and not seen in a really long time, if ever. We've seen 2 in a row before from Hawkins last season. Lawson Peel has done it sometimes, but we haven't seen 3 in a row in the way that Brandon Hawkins could do if he is able to get tonight's race win. That'll really mean a lot for him and his playoff chances as he continues to potentially push for a 4-wide championship. Well, let's get on the grid and show you tonight's Dropping the Hammer starting grid for tonight's 7th race of the Season 7 4-Wide Racing TJ Steam Series from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway, where on the pole, it is Steven Maggio, the one-time winner this season from Auto Club, looking to make it number 2 with a 30.662. He lines up his number 51 on the front row. AJ Green for Stonks Motorsports in his Chevrolet will be outside of the front row. They'll be the first 2 that'll see the green flag when we drop it on lap 1. Colin Forrester makes it a Stonks Motorsports 2nd and 3rd place starting on the grid. Kyle Tursak, the Richmond winner, trying to also get his 2nd win of the campaign. He'll be on the outside in position number 4. Juan Escamilla for Dark Horse Motorsports will be inside the top 5. He's got his teammate Trevor Haley on the outside in his number 4. Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Then on the inside of row 4, Michael Newbraw with one of the best qualifying efforts we see him put up all season, and Ethan Fonseca Moreno still trying to recover from the struggles he's encountered over his off-championship season. Steven Stepien lines up 9th inside row number 5. Nicholas Bauman in the number 14, the rookie driver Francisco, rounds out the top 10.
11th is Kyle Benson, veteran of the series, looking to continue his strong run this season, with Adam Alashire in the 12th spot. Kevin D'Elia, last week's in-race reporter, looking to bounce back after the brake troubles in 13th. Mikey Neal from Buckeye Racing in his number 88 will be in 14th. Brandon Hawken, the man of the hour, the hot guy on the racetrack, is going to be in 15th, looking to see if he can go 3 in a row here tonight with Jesse Prees, DBR teammate, in the 16th spot. You look down at 17th, another DBR driver in Eric Schaefer, with Curtis Kelly in the mix as well in the 18th spot. Austin Reedy rolling off down in the 19th spot. He's going to look to try and move up. And Brian Dixon, top 3 finisher at Daytona, is looking to roll off from 20th.
Row 11, couple heavy hitters, Craig Lautenschlager and Lawson Peel, the Las Vegas winner. In 22nd, Ryan Pandiccio in the inside of row 12, with Jaden Porter, our points leader, outside of him. Row 13, Brandon Banks, the sim racing veteran, and J.J. Hill making his second start of the season. Row 14 is C.J. Munier in the 89. Outside of him is Craig Rowe in the 24 machine. Row 15 rounding out the top 30. It's going to be Christopher Bishop and Timothy Cook in the 19 car. And
then back in 31st, you'll find Craig Parks with Tony Kibbett, Daniel Moore, Cody Kinsey there in row number 17. Behind them, Dusty Applin, the rookie driver from 35th. Tyler Murray in his 36th machine will be in 36. Row number 18, dead last of the field. Remember, him and Ethan have the end-of-line penalty in the drive-through to assess when this race gets the green flag. Well, as the field makes their couple pace laps before we get this one started, why don't we dial up the driver who sits on the outside of the front row for the green flag tonight. He is our KBRN in-race reporter. That is AJ Green for Stonks Motorsports. First of all, AJ, welcome to the booth. It's great to have you here. Chicagoland has been back and forth for you. Top 10 back in Season 4. Not the best outing in Season 6 the last time we were here. What do you expect out of this race, and what do you try to learn from the front row?
Well, being on the front row is definitely going to be key for restarts, especially with the dirty air. In practice, this thing was really tight, and I have a feeling if you're leading any line or the leader, when it gets single filed out, if it does, you're going to have a really big advantage tonight.
And talk about the balance of draft with tire saving. We asked Jaden Porter that, and he gave us some good insight. How do you do it from the front row of this race, and how do you try and parlay strategy to get what would be your first win of the season?
Well, tire saving is just run the bottom, be easy with the gas and the brake. With being in the front, you got to protect and try to block. So try to time up your blocks. Don't make a bad block and wreck yourself, or put anybody else in jeopardy, and hopefully don't get any penalty points. But just run a clean race, and hopefully you can save tires.
Well, AJ, it's a really good starting spot on the outside of the front row. We really appreciate the time. Hopefully we'll be talking to you over the course of the night, but best of luck at the drop of the green.
Thank you.
That is AJ Green for Stonks Motorsports. The Clemens, North Carolina native will be joining us over the course of the night. There's a look at his onboard camera from the inside of his Chevrolet as he sits on the outside of that first row. Really good view, Keelan Belshaw, I would say. And for you, you've got some keys for us to the victory here at Chicagoland. What are they?
Well, these first two kind of go with each other, Kenneth. Keep your momentum up. Stay in the draft. You're going to have to get momentum down these long straightaways and stay in the draft the best you can. That is where all the speed is. That's where we saw the fastest lap times in practice this week was in the draft. Track position early is going to be a big thing because it's going to be somewhat difficult to pass, especially if you're deep. So guys like Hawken, Porter, Peel, guys deep in the field, they're going to have their work cut out for them. And several of the drivers serving the EOLs this evening, like Tyler Murray and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, they got some work to do. And rip the boards, but be careful. That top has speed, but in 3 and 4, there's a big bump that you got to negotiate that could spell trouble and get your car upset.
It's a multi-groove racetrack, one that provides the healthy balance of high-intensity racing and lots of discipline. We're ready for the 7th race of this 2024-25 four-wide racing season from Chicagoland. Stephen Maggio, AJ Green to the green flag.
Oh, and Kevin D'Elia sliding through the grass on this start, but he's able to keep it going in the right direction.
Looks like we already had some bit of trouble there on the opening lap. We'll try and get that for you. Meanwhile, Maggio continues to lead at the exit of turn 1. Colin Forrester dials up the inside of AJ Green in the fight for second to complete the first lap.
And there you see the battle behind your race leader, AJ Green, able to hold on to second over Forrester. Side by side for fourth, excuse me, is Kyle Tursack and Trevor Haley. And you see further back, Brandon Hawkins already making moves. He's trying to work his way alongside Kyle Benson for that top 10 position.
So it's all Maggio up front. Colin Forrester, AJ Green continues second and third. And they had started quite well in our last mile-and-a-half race, Keelan, back at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Some of them had fallen back over the course of the long run, but many guys like Forrester had been able to stick around at the end of the race. I'd say it's a pretty decent start for them, knowing that they could be able to keep the track position now, but also be able to gain a bit whenever the long run comes their way on board with Forrester.
He's going to be trying to look at AJ Green right here. And the draft, it's going to be really important this evening, and also saving your tires because they're going to burn off today. And it's going to be something that these guys are going to have to manage. Lap times are going to slip throughout the run. But whoever manages their tires the best is typically in about 20 laps who's going to go up to the front of this field. Right now it's Maggio, but Forrester right behind Green. I think everybody's playing it kind of safe right now, Kenneth. No reason to make a move early and jeopardize your run.
And there's Trevor Haley, Nicholas Bauman, Juan Escamilla, the trio for Dark Horse Motorsports. Those guys were also in the conversation in our last mile-and-a-half race in Vegas, too. They started the race up front. All of a sudden, they fell back. Bauman, particularly the pole sitter for that race, had fallen outside of the top 15 once we breached 25 laps in. And then Trevor Haley was the victim to bring out the first caution of the race as he slapped the outside wall off of turn 4. So maybe they learned their lesson here as Bauman dials up the outside. He's got that very beautiful Mobil 1 Office Depot Tony Stewart throwback. Obviously, in reference to Stewart Haas Racing, they're making their last official race at Phoenix Raceway this weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series. They will go racing, I believe, next year in the Xfinity Series, but will not have a Cup operation. So as for the team there at Ford and with the Stewart Haas Racing camp, they will be belly up by the time it all goes to the end. As AJ Green is creeping up on Steven Maggio, he may build up the run out of turn 2, yet to get the draft, and still Maggio in control. AJ Green is there.
And there you see Green still holding on to the second spot. Bauman closing in. He's going to see if he can battle for this top 3 position. And none of them have really let go of Steven Maggio, Auto Club winner on an old surface. So it's not surprising to see the driver of the 51 doing a good job here. And there's Steven Stempian. He's worked his way up into the top 10 just behind rookie Juan Escamilla in that number 8 Snap-on Tools Chevrolet. And I got to tell you, Kenneth, that's definitely a good brand to represent on the top of your hood. It's pretty expensive, but it's some really good tools.
Say you've got the resume to give a good review on that, but he runs P7 right now. I'd say there's a big difference there between 7th and 8th Keelan Belshaw. I'm noticing at least almost a second and a half between Stempian here and Adam Alashire in his Toyota Camry, who's leading this second group of cars, chasing back to turn 1. And in this group is the 2-time winner this season, Brandon Hawkins, who searches for 3 in a row. Didn't have the greatest qualifying effort here at Chicagoland, was one of the better drivers in practice, but definitely a little more behind the 8 ball this time around for the Canadian.
I think this is one of those tracks where, you know, it's one of those that everybody knows, and it makes qualifying a little bit more difficult. It's not like Daytona or Talladega difficult, but just one mistake, one bump you hit can really mess up a qualifying lap and put you behind the 8 ball early in this race. And that gap that we see from Alashire back to Stempian, that's something that can happen here at these next-gen tracks, and that's why the draft is going to be so important. If you lose that draft just a little bit off the nose, you can lose a big gap like that. As we see the 14, Nicholas Bauman, he's been that first guy up front that's really been committed to the middle of the racetrack, Kenneth, and right now he's making it work, getting the momentum down the straightaways and trying to make a move for second. I'm just curious if that's going to affect his tires poorly as the run progresses, but he's trying to get that track position here early.
He punctured a hole on the outside, forcing his nose there and saying telling AJ Green, hey, I'm here on the outside, let me in. He weaves his way to second. Forrester tries to get the inside done on AJ Green, while Trevor Haley tries it from the middle lane. Looks like Dark Horse Racing is finding speed there where there isn't that much rubber and there isn't that much energy on the track. Only problem is, Francisco, they're letting Maggio pull away.
They are, but at the same time, they still have some kind of draft. So if they settle out this quickly, they could have a shot. And look, AJ Green on the inside with a tight race car is going to slide up, but he's able to keep the side draft going there on the outside. So you see just Maggio pulling away a little bit. If neither one gets clear, this will ultimately let the 51 just drive away and control this race, as we're now completing 11 laps into this race. And a quick mover so far early in this one, Kenneth, as Tyler Murray started at the back with his penalty, and so far has driven his way up to 24th, trying to work for 22nd here on the 13 of Craig Mountain Slugger and the 5 of Brandon Banks.
There's a look on the left side, the battle for the race lead between Maggio and Bauman. On the right side, Tyler Murray getting his way through the field. That's his teammate Lownslauger there. Brandon Banks, Jaden Porter, pretty hefty pile of cars beneath the top 20. We know again that Murray and Moreno were at fault of those incident penalties that they got at Richmond from tangling with each other last week. And so they're still getting their bearings together, moving their way through the field. It's not necessarily easy, though, Keelan, when you have a lot of separation this early on. But it's allowed for this pack to develop and those guys back there to get a bit of a squabble going down as Bauman continues to get onto Maggio, potentially make a move at some point in this run. It's been almost tough for Bauman to do that right now. Well, look at Tyler Murray. Just talking about him, we mentioned him in the pre-race show where him and Ethan Fonseca Moreno got into a bit of a situation, and it was exactly where they got into the contact with each other. And it was around when things really got shifty between those two at that portion of the race. We're just trying to get that right there for you if we can. But there we go. Last week at Richmond Raceway, those two were able to get around the field in some cases, but at some point, things definitely got up to some problems, Francisco, and you noted the tensions between Tyler and Ethan very hot when we talked to them both.
Yeah, we talked to them right after the incident, and they voiced each of their displeasures with one another, even though the incident was generally a racing deal, really. And then right here, late in the going, just some slight contact with those two going into turn 1 results in the 36 getting spun around in front of the field to 57. Able to hold on in that particular instance, but was able to recover and salvaged whatever he could from that. But obviously both were dealt penalties in that situation. Both had to start from the rear. And for Tyler Murray, he's already driven up to 21st, so he has gained about 15 spots since the drop of the green flag. Meanwhile, Ethan Fonseca's gained about 10 on his own right. He is up to 25th, and he's closing in quickly on Brandon Banks here down the back straight. He's actually to the inside of the 5.
And there is Craig Rowe, Brian Dixon among those that are in this fight as well. All of them still trying to make an effort, as Jaden Porter up the road also making inroads. He's one of those guys that has yet to finish outside of the top 10 since the opening round at Daytona. We talked to him in our Dropping the Hammer pre-race show, and he said he was very, very hungry for a race win. It has been quite a while since we've seen the Kentucky native take on victory lane here in this series, and I'm sure that he was very happy over the weekend seeing the Kentucky Wildcats take on the basketball court as college basketball season kicked off several days ago. But Porter wants to kick off his championship run, at least for a second one, as he tries to eye in on 17th. That's Eric Schaefer, all in this single file line of cars. Again, Francisco, these are cars that are really far back and out of touch from the main pack that extends to about 7 cars to Juan Escamilla, and then 8th on back is where you find Hawk and Kelly and about 4 other cars, and then that huge pack that has Kyle Benson, Porter, and everyone else that we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a big gap of about almost 2.5 seconds from Juan Escamilla back to Brandon Hawk, and it goes back to that draft, the side draft, the racing, and it really started with Adam Alashire, kind of had a big gap developing in front of him. Then eventually these other guys caught up to him and got around him, but the gap already exists, so now there's no draft in front of him to be able to access to immediately catch up. And just behind this, Michael Newbrawl and Kyle Benson are beating the doors off each other on the back straightaway, trying to race each other for that position for 11th. But kind of finishing up what you mentioned there, the Kentucky Wildcats, Kenneth, I know basketball season just started, but I'm still paying attention to UM football. They're 9-0, and they're ranked number 4 in the country. They have a really good shot of getting a bowl game and making the college football playoffs.
You know, a lot of people were tuned into ESPN last night to find out where each of the teams were ranked, and says Miami right now, where they stand, they would have a bye week for that 12-team college football playoff. Look at the Charlie Byer photography onboard camera with Benson. This is the fight for 11th, and we've got a little camera on the left side of your screen. That's a pedal cam, and you know, we asked Kyle why he chose a pedal cam for Chicagoland of all places, where you're only really using the throttle, maybe a tab of the brake in the middle of the corner. But he said, why not do something different? You can say, so you can see a little bit of the dab of the brake as he enters the corner with his left foot and the right foot back on the throttle as he exits the corner. And you were taking some laps in practice, Francisco, seeing just how this setup is and how tough it is to drive as it's so planted to the floor, where you got to really play with the throttle in order to get that right exit off the corner.
And I gotta say, it's interesting that I don't see Kyle Benson using a little bit of brake on corner entry. If we could go back to that camera just for our viewers to see, he's coming out of the throttle, so there you see he gets out of throttle, actually uses a little bit of brake there, and I mean it's a little bit, that's exactly how much you want to use, and then plays with the throttle, gets back on full throttle as soon as he can to maximize his speed down the straightaways. And that's really the key to it, Kenneth. When we say he loses a little bit of brake, we really do mean feather it just as little bit as you saw Kyle Benson do right there. And looking up at the front of the field, Kenneth, we have a breakaway. Steven Maggio now has a 1.3 second lead over Nicholas Bauman, as this pack has kind of gotten racy with each other and lost ground to Maggio, but at the same time, they're not exactly being reeled in by Brandon Hawkins.
And they've enveloped Colin Forrester, who was at the front of this pack sitting third. Now he's dead last in this pack, sitting seventh. The man who's trying to get his way in, Steven Stempian, in fifth, who was at the back of this field in this pack, is making inroads now. Escamilla tries the bottom on Trevor Haley. That got real close to the entry of 3 and 4 as AJ Green and Bauman, they're going door to door. How about 3 wide? Colin Forrester sending it down before turn 1.
And big trouble there for, I believe it was Escamilla, had trouble off the corner. You see how much momentum he lost and loses multiple positions right there. Trevor Haley was making the aggressive moves to go to the inside. Now Forrester and Stempian side by side as AJ Green still tries to battle away with Bauman for the second spot. All this 1.5 seconds off of your race leader, and Brandon Hawkins slowly creeping into this battle. He's now a second off of Forrester.
So Maggio continues to balloon his gap to this pack behind. 1.6 seconds, and he is at moment in cruising mode. Not something we saw in practice. Didn't see any laps put down by Maggio, but looks like qualifying was all that mattered for the Toyota Camry, and the KBRN machine continues to lead this one. Very different from how he encountered Auto Club Speedway, which was his first start and ended up being his first win, Francisco. It was more of a claw through the field where he had to work his way through the competition, get a feel for it. Then at the end is when he made his power move 3 wide for the lead on Colin Forrester. This time around, I'd say he's got less on his shoulders and more worried about what's to come strategy-wise if this stays green versus what's going on behind it.
And Maggio ran good in that Auto Club race. He had speed and was able to get up there, make the move, and held on those late restarts. But at the other races, he's also shown he's had some speed. At Bristol, he ran top 5 for a pretty good portion of the evening, came away with a second place finish there. Vegas was running inside the top 10 until he got involved in a late crash. But Steven Maggio, Kenneth, has been really strong on his rookie campaign so far this season, and if he's able to keep this kind of performance here tonight, it'll certainly suit him up in the Rookie of the Year standings. And here's Ethan Fonseca, who's moved his way up to 18th, so he's continuing that climb here. Now has to deal with Eric Schaefer and his own teammate in Jaden Porter just in front before he can talk about Lawson Peel and Kyle Turfsack to enter that top 15.
Moreno finished in 13th at Richmond last Wednesday. Obviously was the struggle for him, as we noted with him and the beef with Tyler Murray. Obviously a lot of drivers were not happy with that race overall, and a ton of track position was changed as a result of what went down, how many yellows were thrown, and the overtime attempts, coupled with all of the pit stops that we had under yellow. Who was electing for some tires and some fuel, but we are looking at almost 3 wide that was down this back straightaway. And look who's entered the fray. Brandon Hawkins, the Canadian, has worked his way into 8th. Now looking on the outside of Stempian, the Massachusetts native. Probably a little bit of neighbors, even though Brandon is a little bit from the north, but he'll move on the outside. This pass for 7th place in turn 1.
And he's able to complete that one for now. Goes up to the high side again, trying to roll that momentum. I think as this run goes on, because of how tight the race cars are, you run a higher lane, it should roll the car a little bit better, free it up a little bit if you get that wall proximity good enough. Probably on this end of the racetrack you can do it better. And keep that momentum up and start making some passes. It's going to cost him some time, but right now he's maintained about 3 seconds to Maggio the entire time through this run. So if he clears this traffic good enough, he could end up in second and run similar lap times to your leader, because Maggio now has a 2.2 second lead on AJ Green. So he's just driving away from the pack of cars, and guys who've saved their tires better not in that pack are starting to move up and get around some of these guys.
Just only seems like for many of these guys in this pack, latter half of the top 10, and specifically here, guys on the outskirts of the top 10, more focused on the green flag strategy that'll probably encounter the field if we do not get a caution flag, and more of the worry about that instead of trying to catch up to Stephen Maggio. It seems like that may be a lost cause as of the moment. You're watching the battle with Curtis Kelly, him and Adam Alishire, the pair of teammates for not stonks, but still kind of stonks, were going at it. They've got Steven Stempian and Colin Forrester right in front of them. And Curtis, who we talked to on the pre-race show last week, was one of the biggest movers of the race. Started 27th and worked up 20 positions to finish 7th. He's got a pair of those over the last 2, and it's been really great racing for Kelly, who we mentioned with that 133 winless streak here in 4-wide action can break the curse if he's able to do it tonight. Alishire giving him some help as he patrols the middle lane here on Stempian. And let's talk about how performative that is, Francisco, here in Chicagoland, especially with these tighter setups. At Chicagoland, we often see the outside lanes be of use, can get a lot of speed out of it, but a lot of playing defense is pinching the driver to the inside, because as the grip continues to wear down on the bottom, that rubber continues to build up and it gets really slick. It gets so hard, especially with an understeer race car, to get back on the throttle really soon at the apex and get out of the exit with enough time and momentum to beat the car ahead of you. So many a time you won't see the guys rip the boards. You'll see them in the middle trying to pinch the driver down low.
Yeah, you have those two options. You can pinch the car to the bottom and force him to get out of the throttle, but that also is a little bit of a riskier option. Yes, it's more effective, but you risk that guy getting loose and getting up into you and causing you to spin or get some damage on your race car, which is not ideal. And you'll see, especially early, what guys will do is they'll try to run the wall, use that momentum to power themselves down the straightaway and clear the guy. I've been looking at this battle between Ethan Fonseca and Eric Schaefer. Ethan was trying to make that bottom work for a handful of laps, got the outside. Schaefer tried the crossover here in 1 and 2, but having that outside lane he wanted, the 57 is able to move up to P17.
This is again at the back. They're again worried more about the strategy side of things, as Brandon Hawken, what a move that he made under Trevor Haley and Juan Escamilla, dived under 3 wide by arcing it up high and diming down low. It seems like that's the strategy here for Hawken at this juncture of the race, and he is chasing down AJ Green, our KBRN in-race reporter. He is about, give or take, 0.3 of a second faster than AJ Green, especially that last time by across the stripe. The only guy that can match him is the race leader, who's in clean air. Caution flag, though, waves for the first time tonight.
Christopher Bishop, I think.
And some trouble at the back of the field. Several drivers slowing down, but it appears there have been someone in trouble all the way at the back. Potentially Curtis Kelly here, was at risk of being a lap down, but so far, no dice to find anyone that was involved. We'll get a better eye on it next time by. But the first caution waves here, lap 36. And Stephen Maggio's lead disintegrated.
Yeah, he had a 3 seconds, so he had the ideal lead there and was starting to plan ahead for his pit stop. But I'm just kind of going through here, Kenneth, and I don't see anybody spinning or any kind of anything really that would bring out a caution. I'm just kind of running my way up and down the field, and I don't see anything that would have warranted a caution. So I'm not really sure what brought us under the yellow. Steven Stempian's being scored outside the, being basically scored outside of the race, but he made it onto the to the caution flag. So I'm really not sure what this caution is for.
Looks like, according to Keelan Belsha, you haven't heard him in a little bit. He's had his headset die on us, but hopefully we're able to get him back. He just gave us info from JJ Hill, who's on the track right now, telling us that it was an accidentally thrown admin caution, so there wasn't any incident on track. But the storyline for Steven Stepien, it may have been packet loss there for the Massachusetts native. Such a shame, though. He was working his way up through the top 10. Now it appears his race is over, or at least he'll attempt to get back in the session. But right now, he's a lap down out of the race, not in the server. And he was running inside the top 10 at the time of that as the yellow came out.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kenneth. I don't think many drivers are happy about that caution, but if there's anything we can compare to that, it's definitely a debris one. That is, you can definitely say that that is debris. We'll give Tyler the excuse. How about that? Just call it debris.
Was there an inflatable orange on the track? I don't know.
I don't know. I think accidentally that Wawa wrapper from my sandwich made its way onto the racetrack. It's pretty big, pretty sizable. I think it was dangerous. I think that's why I threw the caution.
You know what? Maybe AJ Green threw something there on the racetrack. He
Some beef.
probably was hoping for a yellow flag to come out. Couldn't even see Maggio there in the front end of his windshield, but he'll be on the outside of the front row, similar to how we started this race. But a newly minted Brandon Hawken gets third, Trevor Haley on fourth, and Colin Forrester the top 5. So a really interesting first part of this race, 38 laps in. Almost was expecting Francisco to see a bit of that green flag strategy action kick in, but thankfully for most of those guys at the back of the field, they have a chance to reset, get their heads back in the game, and find a way to stay in the pack, because being dragged out so early on in the run last time was pretty detrimental to those guys. If it had come down to green flag strategy, maybe they would have been in a tough spot.
Yeah, I think for most drivers, they'll take it. They'll get the opportunity to get press tires and go at it again. But definitely somebody who was not looking forward to that is Steven Maggio. Had a 3-second lead, had a cushion on Brandon Hawken, and was running very similar lap times to Brandon Hawken. So I think even if Hawken got it to second, I don't think the 51 was going to be too concerned about the 98's progress towards him, or at the very least in the short run, was very confident in his abilities to hold on to that lead until sometime after pit stop. So the pace car is off. They're in the Geico restart zone, and a great launch there for the 51. He's able to get well ahead of Brandon Hawken, who clears for second. AJ Green does not get a great restart, and they're now 3 wide behind him.
Question is, how long does Maggio stay up front? Hawken in the fight with Haley. They're almost 3 wide. Back there in the top 5. Bauman sneaking in up high. We're 2 rows deep. Or 2 side by side, several rows deep, all the way back to turn 3. Maggio still up by over half a second.
And that's the kind of restart you need to break that draft as Forrester gets loose off the floor. He's got a couple cars, including Mikey Neal, stacking up behind him. Here comes Jaden Porter now, who's making his way into the top 10.
Trying his way in. Remember, he was fighting for a spot inside the top 15. Him, Kyle Benson, and company are now just finding their way into the top battle, up in the top 10, as Dark Horse Motorsports continues their side-by-side tally. Escamilla and Haley back to turn 3, even caution flag out again, and it may have been a pretty big stack up at the back of the field.
Schaefer.
Eric Schaefer, the man in trouble in turn 3.
Looks like he got involved with a spin down the back straightaway with Adam Alishire. It was just them two. I think Adam Alishire tried to side draft and just some slight contact with Eric Schaefer, and unfortunately the 24 of Craig Rowe got a piece of it, so it's not going to be a pretty view.
There's a huge hit to the rookie Rowe. Timothy Cook almost getting into it, and Eric Schaefer with a pancake of a hit down the back straightaway. Him and Alishire contending for that spot, and this was at least beneath the top 20. Up the row, you see Moreno, Michael Newbraw, Austin Reedy, and just a case of getting into the side of the race car and just getting him around. Nothing that Schaefer could do. Great avoidance by the field, but a stuffed up race car. Eric Schaefer will have to take his Chevrolet to pit road, and that brings out our second caution of the race. First one, though, Francisco, for an on-track incident.
Yeah, definitely the first one we got for an on-track incident. Again, we're sorry, but we're definitely going to mess around with Tyler for that one for a while. But it is the first time we've had an on-track incident to bring out the caution flag. But I think, interestingly, we do have a couple cars making their way onto pit road. And I will say, Kenneth, this is actually a pretty crucial point to pit. And I say this because this is now the window where everybody who's hitting right now can do one more pit stop in this race under the green flag as opposed to potentially 2 for everybody else. And crucially, someone on that strategy, the 12th car of Lawson Peel.
Our fuel window looking at about 40 to 45 laps. It's about what we had last season with these 75% fuel tanks. And you're right, I saw a bunch of DBR drivers go in. Newbraw was one of them. Lawson Peel was the second. Saw his name dropping through the running order. And he did try to parlay that strategy, Peel did, to help him get the win at Las Vegas. Mind you, it did come down to a restart inside 10 laps
and
to go.
And he's saving, listen. It's silence inside that race car. He is saving as he exits pit road, so that definitely tells you what their game plan is.
So he's looking to extend this the long way, and it appears that maybe, anticipating Francisco, that we will see at some point a long green flag run that could hamper all of these guys at the front. Like you said, if you're trying to crunch down the amount of pit stops you have yet to complete to make it to the end of this race, it probably will give you the benefit of the doubt if it goes green, because then all of these guys at the front, they'll have the advantage early. They'll lose all of that over the course of the race. I'd say it's tough, though, for a guy like Steven Maggio, just because Francisco, he had that almost 2-second lead over the field, saw Brandon Hawken catching up to AJ Green, probably didn't think much of it. Then the caution came out, beat the field on the restart, now has to do it all over again, this time with Hawken on the outside.
He got a great launch on the last one, so I think he's hoping that he can get a sizable lead again to the point where he doesn't have to worry about fighting somebody off with the cold tires, where he can warm them up and really get going. And the battle for second is going to be interesting, because restarting in second in this series, especially just anywhere in general where you don't have a clue of where the leader could go, it definitely just makes it difficult to launch. I've said this multiple times, Kenneth, starting in second is a lot more difficult than starting in third, and I don't mean the gears, I mean the position. If you start behind the leader, you just have that guide in front of you, and I'm not sure how to explain it. You just have a better opportunity of launching with the leader being behind him versus being alongside of him. And right now, as we're on board with Trevor Haley, you see the difference. He's not necessarily saving fuel. He has to stop twice no matter what, unless you end up in a Richmond situation.
Trevor Haley runs 6. I'd say the good news for Dark Horse Motorsports, the fact that they really lagged off at the later part of the run at Las Vegas. Probably some lessons learned there. They're a bit better this time around. Haley will carry our Charlie Byer photography onboard camera as we get the 1 to green signal from the iRacing official pace car, ready for the green flag at lap 45 of 134. We've got a question in the YouTube chat from our good friend Charlie Byer. He asks, good evening, gentlemen, and another visit to NASCAR's Fallen Tracks. What about Chicagoland specifically do you miss the most about it in its races held in years past, or favorite moments?
Ooh. Favorite moment? I think it's obvious that it is the 2018 finish when Busch and Larson had that amazing battle, but I feel like they got rid of this track as it was starting to come into its own.
That's true. It is one of the newer tracks on the NASCAR schedule. I mean, it's not hard to count out the moment between Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. I mean, that's just classic. The slide job comment by Dale Jr. is an all-time one-liner that'll be remembered for ages in the NASCAR world. And that was one of the ages of the 2018 package when they had high horsepower and very low downforce. Ready for the restart on the right side. Jaden Porter on the left side, the front row restart. Maggio with a great jump back to turn 1. AJ Green in that heavily contested fight for second with Brandon Hawken.
And this is where you have to see where to find that clean air. You see the 71 drifts up. Porter's going to go to the inside of him. And now when they get down to turn 3, what does Jaden do to avoid dirty air and give himself the best opportunity to roll this corner? You see Benson moved up high. That lets the 28 move down low, and they're going to be side by side. And look at how loose he is on the bottom as he tries to stay side by side with the 38. AJ Green loose as well.
And Brandon Hawken was catching up to Steven Maggio. So Maggio, big crash on the front straightaway though. Several guys involved. Kyle Tursak, Craig Parks, Kevin D'Elia, and Lawson Peel, the man who gambled on strategy, has lost his cash. Caution flag out for the third time tonight.
A lot of the DBR cars involved in this one, and actually Lawson Peel was at the site of the beginning of it. Just getting a quick look here, he gets a big run on JJ Hill and Kevin D'Elia and kind of bounces off of them. Sets D'Elia and himself up the racetrack into JJ Hill, so watch this. As Teal gets to run through the corner, you see the 53, 54 get loose. He tries to take advantage of it with the new tires and gets into J.J. Hill, sends him down into D'Elia, and then both go ricocheting up. You see Turfek get involved, DJ Munier, Austin Reedy. And that is big for Lawson Teal. We talked about how he was just getting back into his stride. And unfortunately, this incident is not going to help that momentum that he had going for him.
On board with D'Elia. Not a good look.
Right there,
Several
Munier.
guys in there. CJ Munier, Craig Parks getting into that one late as he had nowhere to go. It almost seemed like, Francisco, the same situation that Peel suffered a bit at Auto Club with when he tried to make the 3-wide move for the lead. Just a last-second move, a jerk of the race wheel, and all of a sudden, you've got the car all out of shape, and he's ping-ponging against those two cars, inside and out from D'Elia and Hill, to the point where he loses control of the car, and then he's out for the spin. And for Lawson, who with his DBR teammates, like we mentioned on one of the last yellows, had come down pit road in the effort to save a bit more gas and get the upper hand on the strategy, now has to pit again for some damage repair.
Not ideal. He definitely didn't want this to be a part of his strategy. The good thing for him is that he's able to repair some of that damage and he can salvage this race. But I think that might just take him out of that winning contention. I mean, at least to this point, he wasn't showing top 5, top 10 speed. Not like he has other times. So we'll just have to see what kind of recovery effort Lawson Peel is able to do. I believe he's lost a lap in the process. Might have some required damage. The engine is off on that car. I hear nothing inside the car, and he is a lap down, at least right now. So, unfortunate situation here for Lawson Peel, who had just started to turn his season around. Got that win at Las Vegas, finished second at the Glen, and was able to have a top 5, top 10 run at Richmond. Unfortunately, it's going to go back to the drawing board here at Chicago, looking to try and see if he can salvage.
Well, good news is he's locked into the 4-wide playoffs, so it's one of those moments where you thank your lucky stars that you have that golden ticket and you're okay. Lawson will not be done with this race, though. Without a fight, he'll come back on the racetrack and try.
His steering is bent, though.
Oh, looks like a tolling damage, perhaps. He may have to come back down for some extra damage.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, there you see it right here as it comes into this angle. He's doing a good job of trying to hold it steady, but look at that right front tire. It's just kind of sticking out in the opposite direction, leaning inward, if you will. So not ideal here for Lawson Peel. He's definitely either going to bring it back down pit road or he's going to be hoping for more cautions so he can fix the damage, because otherwise you will be significantly off the pace. And indeed so, Lawson Peel is already bringing it back down pit road here. Already a lap down. He's the only car 1 lap down at this point, so if he gets a quick caution, he'll be back on the lead lap. But like I said, it's just going to be an uphill battle from here on out.
So the Season 4 champ will have a long way to go. 49 laps in from Chicagoland. Let's dial up our KBRN in-race reporter. It's AJ Green, who sits now in 4th after starting this race from 2nd. AJ, you got a copy with us?
Hello, I'm here.
All right, well, AJ, it's been a fun one. We had a long green flag run. You were running 2nd. Brandon Hawking caught up to you. Then the admin said, maybe we need a yellow flag. So the caution came out. We've had several ones after. You guys came down pit road. You're back and forth. What have you seen so far that's caught your eye in this race?
The top has surprised me. I thought it was going to be a majority bottom. To see everybody kind of run the bottom, and they are, but that outside just hooks you if you can get it right. And I've noticed people are shifting to 4th. I feel like you'll see a lot of people start shifting down in the corners, especially if they're on the inside of a driver.
And since you had some decent tire wear over about, let's say, 38 to 40 lap run, are you expecting a long green flag run here? And how do you try and handle that if we go green that long?
I sure hope we see a green flag run. I really want to do a green flag pit stop here. I think being on the outside, I have to get to the bottom pretty quick. I do like running the bottom. Just saves that little bit extra tire.
All right, AJ, well, we appreciate the time. You're running outside row 2. It's a pretty good view. Best of luck at the green flag.
Thank you.
So AJ Green will rejoin his teammates. We'll dial him up a couple more times over the night if we can. He's our KBRN in-race reporter. He will have Brandon Hawken in front of him with Steven Maggio on the inside. Still, the race leader, he has yet to relinquish the top spot. But Hawken gave him a challenge on the last green flag attempt. Will it change here at lap 50? Slowly approaching halfway home from Joliet, Illinois. Maggio launches again with an early jump. Hawken trying to beat him there to turn 1.
It was a good launch, but not as great as he's gotten on other restarts, because you see Hawken able to hold on there a bit better than anybody else has been able to do to this point. And AJ Green and Bauman will be side by side. Hawken's going to get a run here for the lead.
The Chevrolet peaks on the inside. He'll look for it in turn 3, but Maggio will not give it to him. He'll send the block into 3 and 4. Hawken trying to arc the car up high, but here comes Bauman fighting for second place.
Bauman trying to get to the bottom, and I think he's there momentarily, but the front by the 98 able to carry him through. And AJ Green and Trevor Haley as they're almost 4 wide behind, with Jaden Porter on the inside. Colin Forster up through the middle trying to get to the inside of Benson. Haley has his moment, drifts up the racetrack, might lose that spot as well. And there's Porter now squeezing to the outside of Escamilla. Great battling here inside the top 5.
I look on board with the Williamsport, Pennsylvania native of Kyle Benson, talking about ripping the boards with our Keelan's keys to the race. He's doing just that and making good use of it, sliding into 7th place. There's the pedal cam on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Curtis Kelly trying to make a move on Kyle here in turn 1. Curtis again slides into that latter half of the top 10. Hawken and Bauman continue that battle here for 2nd place, and that's a good sign for Steven Maggio. He thought Hawken might have had the move. Looks like Bauman wants his own though. Turn 3 to the middle, looking for the top spot.
It's the first challenge we've seen on Maggio all night long, and he's there. He's got a great run. Maggio's going to go all the way to the bottom and at the line. I think Bauman may have led that one, but they're side by side back to turn 1. Bauman arguably has the better position here, and he might have it out of turn 2.
New race leader for the first time here in Chicagoland. Bauman has the spot, but by half a car length. They're banging doors on a back stretch, and Maggio attempts to slide in 3 and 4. Once again, Bauman is not giving up. We are still door to door at the exit of turn 4.
I think he's going to have it this time. He had a big run, and Maggio's not side drafting, and he's clear. Nicholas Bauman to the lead at Chicago.
He led from the pole at Las Vegas, then fell back on tire strategy, and he tells us, at least through his actions, that he is going to gain track position quickly, and he's done it. To the race lead, Bauman goes. His teammates Haley and Escamilla try to scour their way through the top 10, and now Brandon Hawken will try once more. He's been running up high over the last several laps, hasn't given him any sort of jackpot as of yet. Still running in 3rd, and our main pack extends to about 8 or so cars. Make that more with Jaden Porter and several others single file in the background.
And Jaden Porter behind his teammate Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who's showing up here inside the top 10. So he's turned that EOL start into a good running position so far in this race, hoping to get some momentum. We talked about the trouble that he's had in his championship season, trying to defend that championship, and has not gone his way so far. Had a good run going at Bristol. There's some contact. Trevor Haley, AJ Green, Juan Escamilla, they go blocking each other all the way down the racetrack. 4th, they're trying to take advantage, and Curtis Kelly up top. But to finish my point on Ethan, Kenneth, he's hoping to try and get some kind of momentum. Had a good top 5 run going for him over at the Watkins Glen racetrack. But that's really been his bright spot on the season, just that Watkins Glen race.
Yeah, it's been his best finish of the season in 4th, where he lost that spot to that Simu Cube Ford Mustang Dark Horse you see on the outside of the fight with AJ Green. Juan Escamilla, the Stonks Motorsport Chevrolets of Green and Forrester will work together down the front straightaway, and we'll try it once again in turn 1. Looks like the battle has calmed down quite a bit, getting the aftermath of what was going down, but several still looking for the position. Escamilla continues to push his way forward on Brandon Hawken and potentially Steven Maggio. They've let Bauman pull away to the tune of about 0.4 of a second. And obviously a lot of big movers there. Kyle Benson at the back end of this train. We mentioned him and the onboard camera look with him. He sits in 9th place. You mentioned Moreno back in 10th. Jaden Porter in 11th. All the while, Tyler Murray, who was one of the biggest chargers earlier in the race, is still here in the mid-pack. 17th, fighting with Brandon Banks and a hefty list of cars. Many of them yet to find a way into the top 10 tonight.
And I believe Tyler Murray is on that alternate strategy of trying to make one green flag pit stop in this race, and indeed so. Tyler Murray's last pit stop was actually 17 laps ago, just a handful later than most of your leaders. That could be the difference, especially with all those caution laps you got there, to save enough fuel to get all the way more. We know everybody has to stop at least one more time, so these guys have a better shot of saving to do it in that one stop. Everybody else might have to stop twice. And also, just kind of looking at the scoring screen here, Kenneth, Nicholas Baumann is quickly catching up to Lawson Field to put him 2 laps down. He just has a lot of damage on that number 12 car. There's Baumann approaching the start-finish line, and the 12 car is in turn 1.
So that is tough news for the Columbus, Mississippi native. Carl Forrester goes to the inside of Escamilla. That'll be for the podium spot. Forrester was strong early in this race and fell back to 8th. That was his race worst at the moment, but still mans up the inside on Escamilla. No jackpot there. He'll stay back, and that'll be 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, all single file, catching up to Nicholas Baumann. 61 laps in the books. I'd say, though, Francisco, there are technically 3 strategies at play. The main group of guys at the front of this field who have pitted 25 or so laps ago, and then it's Austin Reedy, Tyler Murray, who have at least a 5-lap better tire difference. And then they look at a guy like Adam Alishire, who pitted with all those other guys who were involved in that caution. And they pitted about 14 laps ago, but Alishire came away with a pretty clean race car, so maybe he's got something up his sleeve, given the circumstance, if he's able to pull this thing off. So we may technically have those 3 strategies at play. Baumann leading this race 62 laps in, still up by 0.3 of a second, but Maggio slowly making inroads and catching up.
Maggio's holding ground, but he's facing challenges from Juan Escamilla and Colin Forster. And just now, really, if you focus on the top 3, Kenneth, all 3 of them are rookie drivers.
And neither of them have been able to lead so many laps in this season thus far. Maggio has been close to it, but Baumann and Escamilla really haven't put themselves in that conversation. 2 of them without a race win. Maggio, of course, getting that stunner of a W at Auto Club Speedway and the way he did it. But for Escamilla and Baumann, who have struggled a bit to get going, this is going to be really exciting for them. Forrester still on the inside, though, in the battle for 3rd as we approach the halfway mark, which should be 72 laps in from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway. Baumann continues to lead. Why don't we turn up the sounds and take it all in with our KBRN Crank It Up. Those are some of the sounds with our KBRN Crank It Up. Lots of great audio from in and outside of these NASCAR Next Gen machines. It sounds so beautiful with their V8s rumbling across this track. Maggio has taken the race lead over Nicholas Baumann. You saw that as we were going on board with Baumann and Maggio, but Baumann is not giving up this fight. It is wonderful right now, Francisco. Baumann had fallen back, it seemed like, on the tire side of things. Maggio, though, is just giving him the best punch he's got, and Baumann is responding nicely.
some excellent battling going on here at the front of the field. Both of these guys are about 3/4 of a second clear from now third Brandon Hawken, and Bauman's trying everything he can. He gets these runs off the corners here, and you're able to see it as he closes down on the straightaway on Maggio. In one particular lap, he had a good run, but unfortunately just tagged the outside wall in turn 2. But you see the different lines being ran here. Maggio going all the way to that white line, and look at Bauman, what he does. He actually is going to dime at the exit and try and use that draft to close up.
And it's where you see the different philosophy of lines used here at Chicagoland. And this is where I bring up last season, Francisco, because watching the last stint of the race between Scott Healy and Brandon Hawken, one thing was really apparent. Healy was super faithful to the bottom line in that white line at the inside, while Brandon Hawken decided to stay up on the 18 degrees of banking and wanted to run at the very top. We're seeing that in the very same way between these two drivers. Maggio so consistent running down low, while Bauman is bleeding time off, but hoping he can compensate for it on the exit of the corner by running the high side, and it's helping Maggio right now.
And there's Brandon Hawken. He's showing up to the scene.
He's on the inside. He's in third place. Remember, he was in the fight with Escamilla and Colin Forrester for a battle in the top 5 spot. While they go side by side, 3 rows deep, Hawken has escaped the pressure and is charging on that Mobil 1 Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Escamilla attempts the crossover here on Forrester, but the SpongeBob machine on the outside yet to respond. It's a wonderful fight inside this top 10. They've yet to escape each other.
They've all been just 3 wide with each other at times. Looks like I think Lawson Peel's a lap car up ahead, so they might have to narrow this down in 1 and 2 on the next lap. But they've been side by side continuously, just battling non-stop for position as Hawken now has moved his way up into second. Looks like Bauman really used up his stuff there on the early portion of the run to try and take that lead and make a gap, but unfortunately just took too much tire life out of the car and now is paying the price for it as Hawken now moves into second. And he's not necessarily running down your leader, he's just kind of maintaining pretty nicely with him, as there's 3 wide for position further back between the Curtis Kelly machine, Kyle Benson, and Trevor Haley.
They are all over the place on the racetrack. That was our Charlie Byer photography onboard camera. Contact between Green and Kelly at the entry of 1. They're trying to find space there at the entry of the corner. Trevor Haley on the very outside of that. But despite the bullying going down on the inside, Curtis Kelly makes the move, and Ethan Fonseca Moreno says, I want to spoil the party.
And he gains 2 spots out of that, maybe 3, depending on the kind of run he's able to get on Curtis Kelly. Not enough for the 71, but Porter also able to gain those 2 spots, so BBR joining the party here late in this run.
Well, Moreno, we mentioned, had started so deep in this field, partially because of that end-of-line penalty he had to serve because of the contact, the issues with legal owner Tyler Murray last week in Richmond. Lots of frustrations boiling over, and Francisco, you told me that Ethan was contemplating about even running this race in its entirety. I'd say I think he's liking his decision right now as him and Porter synchronizingly moving into the top 10.
We can say that's the case right now, starting lap 76. We still have about 60 laps to go in this race. We'll see how he thinks and where he finishes this race between now and lap 134. But he's moving good. He's doing a good job on this long run. Kenneth, this is exactly what he needs. He needs these long runs. He's good at saving tires and passing cars once they're separated. So if he keeps this up, the driver with the Charlie Byer photography on board could potentially walk away with a great finish tonight.
Again, eyeing down his best finish of the season and trying to best it. It was 4th place at Watkins Glen. His second best finish was 7th at Daytona. But a lot of that came down to surviving at the end of a chaotic race where it seemed like everybody and their mom crashed on that white flag lap, but Moreno was able to somehow escape. Here at 1.5 miles, Moreno can finally get some sort of redemption and a bit of momentum to what's been a rough season so far, while Jaden Porter wants to continue the upwards momentum, this time with a win, and he's got Kelly right behind him, 2 of those guys that went face-to-face at Las Vegas several weeks ago, where Curtis nor Jaden were able to get the race win. They're all creeping up on this side-by-side battle between Escamilla and Kyle Benson. Meanwhile, all of them eating up Nicholas Bauman. You were right there, Francisco. Just used up his Goodyear Eagles early in the run to gain the track
look at
position.
that block by Forster.
Thought he could get there, but just could not hang on. And here's everybody for the taking.
Forster with a huge block down the back straightaway there. on Kyle Benson was not going to give him that spot. And now Ethan Fonseca is looking to the inside of Benson, trying to take that one. Colin Forster trying to block every lane on this racetrack.
It's like one of the momentum strategies you have to take in when you've got everybody crunched up like this. Everyone's under a blanket by at least a tenth or two of a second with everybody up there right now. And it is a great battle with a lot of guys looking for points. Meanwhile, a lot of these guys, basically all of them, have yet to capture a win this season. These are all a mix of either rookie drivers, sophomore, veterans, a ton of guys who have had several different lengths of experience in this series. All of them 6 and 7 cars back, going in a full-on battle for these spots inside the top 5. Moreno breaks through, and they're still 3 wide back there.
Ethan Fonseca, with excellent tire saving, has found himself up to 4th, and Jaden Porter is going to end up right behind him soon because he has kept up the pace as well. And that's all going on 2.5 seconds off your race lead, and there you see on the right side, there's your battle for the top spot. It's about 0.4 of a second that separate your top 2, and it's kind of been that way the whole time. Brandon Hawkins got clear for 2nd, and he just kind of maintained this gap with Steven Maggio, and you want to keep your eye on it because at any moment Brandon Hawkins could start to gain with the help of that draft.
And remember, in our opening run of the race, prior to the caution flag by Tyler Murray, Brandon Hawkins was about a tenth or so faster than the race leader in Steven Maggio, and he was making ground. He was picking up time. Only problem is, didn't have enough time to get there, and then by the time the restarts came around, it was tough. Boy, Forrester is tank slapping the outside wall at almost every single exit off turn 4. He got a heap of that. The Chevrolet is battered, is wounded. It's trying its best to survive, but you can tell the right front screaming for grip. He wants this race and this run to come to an end to get fresh tires.
And what he's really waiting on mostly is that pit window to open up because we still have over 50 laps to go, so you can't make it to the end on fuel by pitting right now. I think you have to go an additional 10 laps to really safely get to the end of the race on just that extra pit stop. So that's going to be one to watch for guys that have burned their tires up, like the 14 of Bauman, like the 99 of Forster. They've fallen all the way down to 8th and 9th respectively, and they're now almost 4 seconds off your race leader. So when you pit is going to matter. How effective you can get on and off pit road is just as important as well. And we'll just have to see how that works out because your top 2 are well clear of the field. So I think any ploy by anybody inside the top 10 is basically just a run at 3rd because they're all pretty close. And the 14 of Bauman actually going to make his way into the pit lane. This might be a little early, Kenneth. It's 51 laps to go.
And these guys, though, are on their 46th lap of their stint. So I was about to mention, if there was any time to start thinking about pit stops, it would be right now. And the man who was hurting the most was Nicholas Bauman himself. He's going to pit solo here on lap 84. And now the question is, who else will join him on this long run? As long as we stay green, we should have the pit stops come in as we go into this race. It will get very close, though, because we're with 50 laps to go. So this will tether very close to that other pit road window to make it to the end of the race. So it is that question of, will you pit now to get the fresh tires and get the advantage early? Or will you try and hold out hope that you can give yourself a little more fuel just in case this race goes into overtime? Forrester is in, so is Haley, and the Stonks Motorsports teammate of Forrester, AJ Green, a trio coming down pit road this time by. So it's everyone around the mid-pack that are starting to find their way in. Here's Mikey Neal, Adam Alashire. These guys fighting for 11th place right now. None of them coming in except Juan Escamilla from the top 10.
And I think this one's the one that's going to pull in more cars. Juan was running in the 3rd spot. We'll give that way to Ethan Fonseca, and this is mostly to cover off that 14 and 99. They pitted early. They're going to be tight on fuel, but those tires are going to make a huge difference as far as where they'll cycle up. So Escamilla trying to cut them off, and we'll see if anybody else follows them up. And on the right side, we'll keep an eye on your top 2, which the gap is shrinking.
Left side is Colin Forrester in the blend line, getting back to the traffic. Same deal with Nicholas Bauman. They're splitting. Dusty Applin, the rookie, picked up some damage there on the front end of his Chevrolet. Not sure where that came from, but for the most part, these are the net race leaders, quote unquote. They'll wait to pass Escamilla, who should have gotten out of pit road now and should be blending in back with the traffic. We'll see where they blend out with these guys respectively. But keeping an eye on the guys in the front on the right side of your screen, they will yet to pit. And those in the top 10 still yet to come down on pit road. Bit of a fun fact for Brandon Hawkins was looking at his information a little bit before we dropped the green flag tonight. And over the last several weeks, as we've talked to him in Victory Lane, he's given us a same sponsor that he shouted out each and every week, and it's Prodigy Racing and Prodigy 3. That's because Brandon Hawken is a part of that Prodigy Racing Championship that has the mission of allowing sim racers around the world to get a shot at racing real-life cars and putting them in a championship with real-life circuits across the country. And Prodigy Racing has given a ton of drivers shots, including guys like Gustavo Ariel, who is a Porsche Esports Super Cup driver and has been well known across the iRacing scene, and a guy like Brandon Hawken, who was selected in the 3rd round and was pick number 13 in that respective draft. So really cool to see Brandon Hawken get that opportunity to run more real-life races. He has a lot of experience in Canada on the karting side of things. So I think, Francisco, it's cool to see what happens there with them on the real-life side as the leaders are in this time by.
They're on the pit road together on the same lap. That's going to hand the top position over to Ethan Fonseca Moreno. And you look at the rest of the field, Kyle Benson, Jaden Porter, Mikey Neal, all staying out. So we'll see where these guys cycle up compared to the 14 and the 99, since those were really the first two that pitted.
You got to avoid a pit road mistake here. Seems like nobody has picked up a black flag for pit road speeding. We know you can easily overshoot the pit box. No problem there for Maggio. As Moreno finds his way on pit road, we'll see if Jaden Porter finds his way in there. And there is Brandon Hawken, who gets out away. He beats Maggio off pit road on lap 91.
That was a great effort on the actual pit stop. You see the 51 loose on the apron, trying to get up to speed. This first lap's going to be very crucial as they see all these other guys getting their way into the pit stall. Mikey Neal in the process has taken over the race lead itself, and as they get up to speed, Kenneth, it looks like your net race leader is going to be Juan Escamilla.
And here he is beating Steven Maggio, but remember the difference between those two is about 4 laps, and that means a lot here at Chicagoland Speedway. Very abrasive surface, so it looks like Maggio could make quick work of him, but Brandon Hawken is already above these two, so it seems like he will be the net race leader. He sits 14th, a lap down right now. Look at him going 3 wide on Austin Reedy and Adam Alshire, a pair of cars that are fighting for the race lead right now that have stayed out up until this point with about 42 laps to go. Reedy real close there with Alshire, but he brings his Ford Mustang in. Brandon Banks and others behind him.
Yeah, Maggio in this traffic might lose a little bit of time to the 98 of Hawken, but we know that Maggio is just as fast as Hawken has been in this race, and he's gotten around Escamilla, who's going to be on slightly older tires at this point compared to the 98. And now there's nobody between them, so we'll see what Maggio is able to do now, having to run someone down instead of having to save, as there you see the 91 of Alshire continuing to stay out leading this race.
Well, the good news for Maggio is that he can learn a little bit from what Hawken is doing, and while Maggio had fallen off late in the run on the last time by, he can probably be on the other side of it this time around, and this is where everyone's cycling through. There are still 5 cars yet to come down pit road. It's your race leader Adam Alshire, Eric Schaefer, Cody Kinsey, Tony Kivitt, and the 24 of Craig Rowe. So it leaves only those 5 who are on what is now 47, 45, and 46 lap old tires. There's the race leader on the right side. Alshire is in this time. We'll await to see if Schaefer, Kinsey, and the others come in. It appears Tony Kivitt has done it, as well as Craig Rowe. So it leaves just 2 now as Brandon Hawken comes out of the second corner on the backstretch.
And both of them in, Eric Schaefer and Cody Kinsey, are making their way onto the pit lane, which means Brandon Hawken will resume the race lead.
And that will mean a lot with Maggio and Escamilla behind him. But what a strategy call by Juan Escamilla and Colin Forrester. Both of them, it seemed like, struggled there at the end of that long green flag run. They pitted where they did, and although they will have less fresher tires than those ahead of them, I'd say they've got pretty good track position. And Juan Escamilla is keeping his own on Steven Maggio in second place.
The top 3 are really all close together because the Maggio's also closed up to Brandon Hawken. Remember, Escamilla's on slightly older tires by about 2 or 3 laps compared to these guys, and his fuel situation's up in the air. But we know the top 2 can get to the end, and they're on the exact same tires. So let's see what Steven Maggio is able to do. He's actually going to look to the inside. There's a lap car up ahead. We'll see what happens here in turn 1.
See if they have any factor in it. That's Craig Parks, the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolet. who runs up high. Both of the leaders will fan down low. Maggio still no attempted pass on Hawken for the top spot. We've seen Maggio a lot over the course of this race. Arc it a little lower down that back stretch and go down low in turn 3 really early to make the apex. Haven't seen a lot of drivers do that. Many in some attempts, Francisco, go really near the outside wall. They go way up high, then arc it down low. But Maggio with a bit of a different approach, more traditionally here as he's chasing Hawken for the race lead, though.
He's running lower than Hawken is in the corners, and he's trying to see what he can do. He kind of backed up the entry a good amount before turning down across the wake on the exit. So watch this. He's going to enter just a little bit higher, backs it up. He's going to turn left, and Hawken actually tries to cover it off, but gets a good enough turn. And watch this. He actually gets a good run right there. He's going to get to the inside.
Here comes Steven Maggio, a look for the race lead. He's led a ton of this one tonight. He does not want Hawken to go 3 in a row. Battle for the lead in 1. Maggio's got it. He'll plant the race car, and Hawken stays up there for the race lead.
And you see them, now he has to go to the side draft. We'll see what he does here in turn 3, how well he's able to keep it on the bottom.
Remember, we talk about that middle lane, how much you can pinch the driver down low and force them to use less of the throttle. Hawken creeped up near the outside wall. Will be door-to-door at the stripe. Hawken will lead it there at lap 99 of 134. It's coming down to the wire. And Juan Escamilla, the third-place car with a front-row seat.
We still have 35 laps to go in this race, Kenneth, and someone I won't count out is the 57 of Ethan Fonseca. Is one of the last cars to pit on that main strategy. He is up to 5th, and he's actually running quicker lap times than both of your leaders, especially since they're side-by-side going around lap car Lawson Peel.
They go around Peel. Escamilla back there in 3rd. We remain door-to-door for the top spot. This may be a death sentence, though, for both of their Goodyear Eagles. And all 8 of them, if you're counting the 2 cars. Escamilla, who has been able to sit behind, is just waiting for the right moment to strike, and they have pulled the gap on 4th place Colin Forrester. With the aforementioned Moreno, they're going to the inside for that 4th place spot. But Maggio is not giving this one up yet. The arm and hammer down in 3 and 4. Maggio's got it. How long will it last?
No, he's still there on the outside. Hawken's trying to hang it tough, and he does so. He's still there. These guys are still racing tough for position. Ethan Fonseca finds himself up to 4th, and he has clean racetrack to close in on these leaders, Kenneth, and I fully expect him to do so because he has fresher tires.
Well, at some point, Francisco, if you're Maggio or Hawken, do you start to worry about Escamilla or Moreno's potential chances? Hawken finally clears for the top spot.
Eventually that bottom was going to be a tough place to hold on to that position, and you see Maggio had to back down. So we'll see what he's able to do now in terms of can he mount another charge, or is he not able to do anything else with your race leader? We'll just have to see. Anything can happen in these closing laps. You know Maggio's been one of the fastest cars here tonight. Really, these two have been the fastest all night. Juan Escamilla with the older tires has done a great job just hanging in there, but definitely expect that 57 eventually to get up there.
Well, we've got 32 laps to go and counting from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway, and it has been a really fun one. Last season it came down to 2 drivers at the end in Scott Healy and Brandon Hawken. This time Hawken is in the same fight, this time with the rookie Steven Maggio. We've got more from the Chicagoland Speedway on the other side.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the virtual Chicagoland Speedway, where the battle for the lead has changed hands once again. While we were on that iRacing side-by-side, Steven Maggio darted down to the inside, took the race lead away from Hawken, and the gap remains at about a car length with about 26 laps to go from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway. And welcome back to our coverage on the KBueno Racing Network. Kenneth Bueno, Francisco Bacalhau, Keelan Belshaw with you for it all. Francisco, we've seen it all over the course of this race. Lots of strategy has pushed Maggio and Hawken in this battle. Moreno has taken away third from Juan Escamilla, and we have seen wonderful stuff between these two. We didn't think tire strategy would take that much of an effect, especially after the flurry of yellows early in the race after the first run, but it has been stellar to watch so far.
It's been an amazing battle that Maggio and Hawken have provided for us, and there's lap traffic ahead that is going to play a role in this if they decide to race the leaders out. And definitely don't count out Ethan Fonseca. Has some slightly fresher tires. He's been fast on the long runs. Could he break that streak of bad luck to start his championship defense and get a win here today?
Well, right now he is almost a full 10, if not a full 10 faster than the race leader in Steven Maggio. He's about on par with Brandon Hawken, but as we cross the line now, he's about another 10 faster, make it almost 2 tenths for Moreno. So with the tires, and as we see them fit, Moreno could have a real good shot at the race win, and it could possibly make it a 3-car race for the top spot with 24 laps to go. We do understand, though, that at this juncture of the race, everyone should be good on fuel. Those who pitted late in the run, including your race leaders now, should be assured on gas. The only concern is if we do end up in some sort of 4-wide overtime tonight. But as it stays green right now, everyone is assured the end of this race on fuel. The only problem is, how can you take care of the Goodyear Eagles? We noticed that Brandon Hawken was much better than Maggio when you get into that 30 and 40 lap run specifically. Moreno yet to see the full sample size with the California native, but knowing he's got fresh tires, I'd say it's good news for him anyway.
He held strong with the leaders despite going through all that traffic to even get up into this position. So I would say he's actually done a good job of saving his tires, and now that he has an advantage, it's probably all he needs to close this gap and make this a 3-way fight for the win. But he's playing a long game. He might try and be there inside of 10 laps to go.
Right side of your screen, Brandon Hawken, the onboard look from his Chevrolet. Left side of the screen is where you find that overall battle for the lead.
Oh, Kinsey's in the way.
And Moreno is that third car at the back end. You can't see him now. Brandon Hawken could have a charge here on the front straightaway. That's the lap car and Cody Kinsey. Hawken is right there on the bumper back to turn 1, and he's got the middle lane.
But he couldn't get back on the gas in time, and now Kinsey's to his outside, so he can't use all the racetrack up. So this actually ends up helping Maggio in the process.
So Maggio stays up front. Remember what's at stake. Hawken looking for his 3rd consecutive win in this series, and what would be his 8th career 4-wide victory. Maggio looking for win number 2 this season and win number 2 in his 4-wide career. It's been a quick progression for Maggio, who joined KBueno Racing Jr. right after the virtual Daytona International Speedway race that kicked off season 7, and ever since he has been stellar. But Francisco, he's working off of some frustration from Richmond, where he thought he was running well at the end of the race, and then he just got crashed out. And in a huge stack up on the final lap in that last attempt of overtime, where Hawken was clearing away the best driver, getting the race win, but Maggio was just super frustrated with that. This is a big time turnaround for Steven in this race, especially if he can beat one of the most talented drivers in the field.
Yeah, you mentioned those incidents on the last lap. It wasn't the first time he had that happen to him at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, so he definitely feels he's been robbed of a lot of good points and a lot of good finishes so far in the early portion of this season, which could easily have him be somewhere in the top 5 in points. A dominant display here tonight is definitely a strong showing at the mile and a half. It could be a show of things to come for the 51, especially if he's able to hold off Brandon Hawken and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, the 2 rookies who tied for the most wins by rookies last season with 5 apiece.
He only had 4 starts in this series so far. This would make it his 5th. And ever since winning at Auto Club, he had a 2nd place outing at Bristol Motor Speedway, won by Kyle Tursak, and then a pair of outside top 15 finishes. 16th place at Las Vegas, and then that 22nd place run last week at Richmond. So it's really been a downturn for Maggio. He's looking to get all of that back up and more. We're looking on board with Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who's eyeing down the top 2. And what I'm seeing up the road, Francisco, a sea of lap traffic.
Yes, a sea of lap traffic, and we got a stocked, but still not stocked, but still kind of stocked teammate of Brandon Hawken up there in Kevin D'Elia that is looking to go a lap down, so that could play a role here. And also, the 97 of Cody Kinsey could play a role in the 57's ability of getting up to the top 2, because he doesn't look that much slower than these guys.
It just looks like Moreno, though, has plateaued quite a bit. He had a advantage that was at least a 10th or 2 over the leaders right now, but as he's caught up to Cody Kinsey, he's got a bit of that dirty air. He's getting a bit of the air wash from the traffic, and now he's setting 31.4, similar to the race leaders. And there is Dusty Applin, the Can-Am Chevrolet, up the road. He'll let the leaders by on the outside, but that's a tough place to catch up if you're Brandon Hawken, who has to go way up near the outside wall and has to let off the throttle. As a result, Maggio will hold on to the lead, and there's D'Elia, the next lap car in line.
And we'll see what D'Elia does here in terms of, does he race Maggio a whole lot, or does he just let these leaders go?
Looks like D'Elia will stay where he's at, but Maggio has to be pinpoint accurate in where he gets by the traffic. It's almost a similar situation to how you were talking about it, Francisco, when Kyle Tursak was leading the race at Bristol, where he had to get by so many lap traffic machines, while guys like Jaden Porter was hunting him down. He had to make sure to keep the traffic behind him away and then start logging down all of those lap cars. But Maggio has stood up to the challenge. Brandon Hawken has as well, and the problem for Moreno has yet to get by either Kinsey or D'Elia on either end of the speedway.
He has not done that. It's just been a struggle with these lap traffic for the 57 of Moreno. And just a quick update through your top 10. Jaden Porter's found his way up into 4th. He's 4.5 seconds off this battle. Juan Escamilla is getting ran down by Kyle Benson for the 5th spot. Curtis Kelly finds himself in the top 10. Mikey Neal with a great run, running 9th, was one of the last drivers to pit on that last strategy. Could continue to gain some positions between now and the checker flag. So shout out to Mikey Neal on the great strategy.
Lots of good runs here from the strategy, including 15th place. Michael Newbraw here for Drinking Bros Racing. Just got by Ryan Pandicio for the not stonks, but still kind of stonks team. And Christopher Bishop, car number 42 in the background there. He's 17th.
And now there's no lap traffic between the leaders. Moreno was able to get by D'Elia and Cody Kinsey, and Hawken is now within a 10th of your leader.
Also another good note, Brian Dixon running in 12th as he tries to get by Craig Rowe. There he is in his Chevrolet. We'll keep an eye on the top 2. They are still separated by a 1/10 of a second. You look at their lap times, it is almost mirror image. Hawken just a tad bit slower, but not by enough to bleed off that much time to Steven Maggio. And while Moreno has got him by the lap traffic, it's taken him so long, number 1, but he's evened out and slowed in comparison to the leaders on lap time, number 2. So with 12 laps to go at the stripe, is that enough time for Moreno to make an impact on this battle for the lead?
It's enough time, but he's going to need them to get side by side and hold each other up. And with another lap car up ahead in CJ Munier, it's entirely possible.
On the right side, the onboard look again from the trailing Hawken, who's trying his best to capture his 3rd career win. And this seems similar in the story to last season, where Scott Healy came out of nowhere on the long run, saved his tires for the right moment, played Brandon Hawken at his level, and went side by side with him, Francisco, for what appeared like 4 to 5 laps. Dead on, side by side, without an inch moving between those two. Then Healy was able to surge out front, and that's where Brandon Hawken had his last laugh, because then Healy was able to pull away, captured his first win of that season, and breaking a super long winless streak. Does Hawken find himself in the same scenario again? They've all pushed the button. It's go time. 10 laps to go from Chicagoland.
Hawken has found a way to get past the 51 once before on this run. It's going to take a mistake or lap traffic, because look at this. He's going to get held up here by Munier off the corner.
There's CJ Munier on the outside. He is just adamant at letting the leaders by. Hawken to the inside, swerves for the race lead, but he cannot complete the pass until the exit of 4. Maggio will hold on for what he's got, and Hawken's attempt failed. 9 laps to go next time.
But you can see that lap car is definitely the opportunity you have to use as a pick to get around the race leader. It's definitely a good opportunity. Wasn't able to capitalize on it, but he still has a chance here with 9 to go.
And here comes Moreno.
Hawken is keeping faith in this line, mind you, as Maggio has stayed down to the inside lane. Hawken is trailing through the middle, then arcing the car down low just to keep it off the outside wall. It's something that sort of bit him at Chicagoland last season in that playoff race versus Scott Healy. He stays about a car length behind the race leader. 8 laps to go, and Moreno creeps back. He's 6/10 back of Hawken sitting 3rd place.
And Hawkins trying to roll the outside. You get a little bit of cleaner air, and at the same time use the draft down the straightaways. If Maggio doesn't make a mistake, this is going to be a huge win for him, but there's so much pressure because not only does he have 2-time winner Brandon Hawken of this season, who's 7-time overall winner, but he also has defending champ Ethan Fonseca in 3rd, so there's a lot of pressure on Steven Maggio right now.
We've got a very experienced top 5 that is not Steven Maggio. Brandon Hawken, Moreno, Porter, and Benson. Those are all the guys 1st through 5th with 7 laps to go. A tall order for Maggio, who had to face the same mountainous climb at Auto Club Speedway, where he beat Adam Alashire and Jaden Porter to the race victory, but it was not this close with 6 laps to go next time at the stripe.
And there's still another lap car up there. I'm not sure who that one is, but that could still play a role between now and the checkered flag. We'll just have to see if they do catch him. Ethan Fonseca staying at about 3/4 of a second behind this duo, possibly waiting for something to go on with them, as they're all 5 seconds ahead of Jaden Porter, who's 3 seconds ahead on his own right of Kyle Benson, as Mikey Neal has moved his way up into 6th. What a great run it's been for Mikey Neal.
A fight with Austin Reedy, who is also a guy trying to piggyback off of a pretty struggling season with the Xfinity Series car and trying to just get back on track there. That SpeedyCash.com Ford Mustang gets into the wall there off turn 2. And so Neal works on by. Kyle Benson has settled nicely inside the top 5 with Jaden Porter above him. But again, the focus is on these two for the race victory. And with these little laps remaining, Francisco, if you're Brandon Hawken, what do you do alternatively to beat Maggio and the dirty air in front?
I mean, the best thing you can do is back up the corners and worry about the exits, which he has been doing. But if you get one bad hint of dirty air, it's probably over. You see him get a little bit tight off 4, but nothing that's going to hurt him. He's going to have to force a mistake out of Maggio. He got really close a lap ago coming out of turn 4, but had to lift just a little bit, and that cost him time. But if he's able to keep that kind of run going like he gets here off of turn 2, that's exactly what's going to give him a shot.
It's off turns 3 and 4 where you're seeing the maximum arc done by Hawken here, who's now a native of Lindsay, Ontario.
He's going to try and get him loose.
Born in Toronto. He'll go on the inside. An attempt. He clobbers the apron quite a bit with the left side tires, creeping up to the outside wall, inches off of it, and still arms reach away from Steven Maggio. Several laps to go from Chicagoland. Still far from over, but Maggio with all the pressure behind him to not make a mistake in these final 3.
He's done good so far, but he still has a ways to go. That lap traffic might be a factor on the final lap. Maggio, all he has to do is keep running that bottom. You do not want to give Brandon Hawken this bottom, and you see Hawkins trying to force some pressure by diving it in there and getting into the head of the 51, trying to force a mistake out of him, but Maggio with some resilience here. 2 laps to go and lap traffic ahead.
Maggio responded there in 3 and 4. Giving him the aero wash. Hawken going up high to try something else. Anything he can throw at Maggio to get this 3rd consecutive race win. But Maggio is staying put down the backstretch with a half lap to go until the white flag.
And he had a lower entry there. This might help Hawken on the front stretch.
Maggio off turn 4. We'll see JJ Hill, the lap car in front. Will that play a factor in this battle for the race win from Chicagoland? It's coming down to another close finish as Hawken tries up high again. He's been doing that every single lap, but
he's got to run.
To find success. Hill's going to let him by. The final charge in 3 and 4. Who will have it? Hawken, Maggio in the final 2 corners. Hawken lets it loose, but it may not be enough. Steven Maggio, for the 2nd time this season, is a 4-wide TJ's Team Series winner.
What a battle between Steven Maggio and Brandon Hawken. Maggio with all sorts of pressure the entirety of that last run. And I'll tell you what, Kenneth, that is not easy to do, to hold off Brandon Hawken the way Steven Maggio did. You saw what Hawken tried to do. He tried to get him to think he was going to send one in there to see if he would watch up, and Maggio drifted up just enough to cover off anything
off the turn 4 and held on. What a battle for the win.
And that lasted over 20 laps between those two. Could it get any better than that?
That's a classic.
Jaden Porter, fellow KBueno Racing teammate, giving the congratulations. Same deal with Mikey Neal, a former teammate. And Brandon Hawken saying, good battle. That was all that he gave him. But Steven Maggio, for the second time this season, will burn it down and take his Camry to Paul's setup shop, Victory Lane.
Well earned. That one was well earned. A dominant performance by Maggio all night from the pole. And I'm just to see exactly how many laps he led here, just get the exact number. He led exactly 108 laps of the 134, Kenneth. It was an extremely dominating evening for him.
Steven Maggio, the race victor here from Chicagoland. You can't say that he didn't earn it after all that went down with Brandon Hawken right behind him. It was a wonderful fight to the end, probably one that we'll remember for a really long time. And I'd say back-to-back bangers here at Chicagoland. We've seen two outstanding battles that has resulted in a favorited winner. We'll look at our full unofficial results from Chicagoland Speedway before we dial up our podium for this race. Maggio, the race winner, his second career four-wide win comes at a 1.5 mile track. Brandon Hawken, who searched for 3 in a row, has to deal with second place for the second time in a row here in this speedway. Ethan Fonseca Moreno, his best finish this season. He's got third place. We'll talk to him and the rest of the podium drivers after this one is all said and done. Jaden Porter for KBueno Racing will continue his consistent run and probably should keep his points lead above everyone else in fourth. Kyle Benson with a strong run tonight, giving us the pedal cam from Chicagoland, ends up fifth. Mikey Neal, a very impressive performance for the Buckeye Racing Chevrolet. He finishes sixth. Great finishing result for Austin Reedy as well. He's got seventh. Adam Alashire back in eighth. Ryan Dixon, how about it? One of the dual winners from Daytona earlier this season has a top 10 in store, and Curtis Kelly remains consistent as always in his Toyota Camry. He's 10th at the end of this one.
Craig Lounsberger is the first one to miss the top 10 spot, with Brandon Banks in 12th. Micah Newbraw in his number 6 machine will finish in 13th, with Chris Bishop in the 14th spot. Ryan Pandiscio rounds out in 15th. Eric Schaefer in 16th. Tony Kivet will be in the 17th spot, with Timothy Cook in the 19th and 18th. Tyler Murray will end up in the 19th spot after his EOL at the start, with AJ Green, a strong runner early. Unfortunately for him, will wind up in the 20th spot for our in-race reporter.
It looks like our in-race reporter curse continues, courtesy of Keelan Belshaw. Juan Escamilla is 21st, 1 lap down. Colin Forrester is also a lap down, back in 22nd. Those are two guys, by the way, who had a solid start to this race. And over strategy and with everything going down, just could not complete a solid run. JJ Hill fell a lap down there at the end. He finishes 23rd. Got to give him credit for all that he's done tonight. Trevor Haley, just as well with his Dark Horse Motorsports teammates, just could not complete the race tonight. Cody Kinsey back in 25th. CJ Munier 26th. 27th, Nicholas Bauman, who was strong for most of the night, led a good chunk of this race. Craig Parks is 28th. Craig Rowe in 29th. Kevin D'Elia, for not stonks, but still kind of stonks, rounds out the top 30. Then behind them, 2 laps down, is Dusty Applin in the 16. Daniel Moore, 2 laps down in 32nd. Oh, it's been a rough one for Lawson Peel. Behind the 8 ball after pitting for a strategy call, turned sour after being involved in an incident down the front straightaway. He's 15 laps down, 33rd place. Jesse Prees in 34th. Kyle Tursak in 35th place after being involved in a crash, and Steven Stempian disconnected at the time of our first yellow flag of the race at around lap 38. He concludes our 36-car field from Chicagoland. Well, let's get a moment to talk with the race winner who occupies Paul's setup shop Victory Lane for just the second time in this 4-wide season with the next-gen cars. Steven Maggio joins us now in the winner's circle from Joliet, Illinois. Steven, what a run that was for you. Does it feel more rewarding than Auto Club several weeks ago?
Oh, yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, I just beat 4 of the best in the league to do that one, so. And that was just on pure speed. That wasn't on strategy or anything, so. Yeah, that one means the most for sure.
You led this one from the jump. Obviously a super strong car. You as a super strong driver leading a chunk of this race. Then the strategy kicked in. You're in that cycle there with Brandon Hawken, who beats you off of the pit road exit line, and you've got a chance to catch up there with a guy like Juan Escamilla behind you as well. How much pressure did you feel in that waning stint as you took the lead and Hawken stayed with you by a car length for the entire length of the run?
Yeah, I feel like I didn't feel that much pressure when we came out of the pits. I was very disappointed to lose the lead through the pit cycle, and I thought I wasn't really going to have a chance after that because when he was behind me before we pit, he couldn't really do anything in the dirty air. So I thought it was just kind of going to be the same thing for me in his dirty air. And then I got held up by I didn't make good decisions when I came out, and I got held up by slower cars who hadn't pit yet. But then I caught him, and I was like, I guess I just have to ride behind him a little bit for now because I don't want to burn my stuff too early and have no chance at the end of the long run. But I just kept getting good runs, so I figured out I'm going to try it. And we were side by side for a long time, and I just couldn't get it done. But I noticed one of the times that we were side by side, I drove it in really hard into 3, and I came way closer to clearing him than I expected to be. I didn't, but I was very close. So I was like, I'm going to keep that in the back of my head. And then we got side by side again, and we were dead even down the backstretch, and I was like, I'm just gonna drive it in so hard. And I heard him let off on the outside of me, and I just held it for another maybe half second, and I was able to clear him. And then I thought he might just be, just sitting behind me, saving fuel or saving tires, because when I came out, I was 2 to the good. And then once I got to the lead, I looked at my fuel again, and I was like a third of a lap to the good. So I had to stop shifting in 1. I had been shifting in 1 the whole race, and that was pretty hard for me because when I was in practice, I wasn't shifting and I was super tight, and then I realized if I shifted, I wouldn't be tight. So then not being able to shift there on that last run was a little difficult, but I was able to make it work. And then, like I said, I thought he was just kind of riding behind me, but then when I got side by side with that lap car, he made that 3-wide move, and that kind of made me realize that he wasn't just riding behind me. He really was trying to push to get around me there. So after that, I realized that I had a good chance. If I just hit my marks, I would be able to hold him off, and that's what I did.
You held off one of the most talented drivers in the series, and you say there it feels so rewarding to get this win. We were talking about your finishing results over your starts in this season earlier on in the race. You had a first at Auto Club in your debut, second place at Bristol, then a 16th and 22nd place finishes in the race. After that, you said after Richmond that you felt a little frustrated with how that one ended. How much of a turnaround is this for you mentally, and how much momentum do you gain off of this win still in your rookie campaign?
Yeah, this is a big confidence booster. Auto Club wasn't as much of a confidence booster because, like I said, I don't know if I was necessarily the fastest in that race. I don't know if anyone was really the fastest in that race. It was just a lot of making the right moves, and we win to take tires and stuff like that. Whereas this one, I really felt like I won that one on speed. So big confidence booster. And when I don't get wrecked, I finish pretty well, first, second, first. And when I do wreck, obviously those finishes aren't that great. Both of those races I wrecked on the last lap. So those results, well, they're not great, or they both would have been around the top 10 instead of where they were, but still really happy to get this one. I don't know. I'm just really, really pumped. Definitely a huge confidence booster, like you said, because I just beat the guy that dominated the other 2 races that he showed up in, so it's pretty cool.
It's a big-time win, and you enter Paul's setup shop victory lane for the second time this season. You and Brandon now have the most wins out of anyone with just 2, so there could be a tiebreaker. You could be able to break it later in the season. Who knows? But Steven, on behalf of this race from Chicagoland, who made it happen for you, and who do you got to thank for it?
Oh, man, I forgot about this part. My teammates, first of all. Jaden and Ethan and Steven were in this race, and then Mikey Neal, I work with him sometimes, and my team owners, Francisco, and I thank you, and obviously you guys for doing the broadcast. Super fun. Love watching it back. I definitely can't wait to watch this one tomorrow because it must have been fun to watch, but especially with Ethan catching us from third. I didn't even realize until late then. But yeah, sorry. Cosmin for making my paint scheme. Cosmin Ayanusu, Splash and Go Designs. I think that's it.
Well, we'd say in the broadcast booth, Steven, that was a certified banger. Congratulations on the W here from Chicagoland
Nice.
Speedway. Best of luck for you and the team as you guys head over to New Hampshire next Wednesday night.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
That's Steven Maggio, the race winner here from Chicagoland Speedway. We know that Brandon Hawken is always a high-spirited guy. He finishes second in a really tough battle with Maggio for the win. Francisco, you've got him.
Well, Brandon, it wasn't the win I'm sure you were hoping for to make it 3 in a row, but that was definitely one of the best finishes we've ever watched. Can you kind of just walk us through those closing laps and your thought process as to what you needed to do to get around the 51?
Man, yeah, that was a really great race. On that last run there, I managed to get a slightly faster pit stop and was able to get out to the lead. But once I got out on track, I saw the fuel numbers and it was going to be extremely close. So I pretty much the entire race I was shifting into fourth in the corners, and I think Steven was as well, and a lot of other guys, and I just like. I was a little bit hesitant to start shifting there early in the run, but yeah. So I kept it in fifth for quite a while, and I probably could have started going to fourth a little bit earlier, but so I was trying to hold it on the outside of Steven, and in fifth gear, and I just couldn't hold on, and. But felt like I had some pretty good long run speed, but of course he did as well. He drove away from everybody there on the first run, and so yeah, it was got to be extremely difficult. I tried everything I could, but yeah, I was just trying to stay in the clean air, trying to go where he wasn't. But he was doing a really great job there, holding it down on the bottom, and that's what he needed to do. And he didn't slip a wheel, and so yeah, I was just doing all I could. I was experimenting a bit, trying to get enough of a run out of the corner that I could get up alongside of him. But yeah, just couldn't quite get it. It was really close there, coming at a couple points, but and at the end I just tried to just hoped I'd be able to psych him out there going into three. I wasn't gonna run him over or anything, but just wanted to hope he'd overdrive the corner. But man, it was that was a lot of fun. He just going back and forth with him. He responded to everything I tried, and man, that was a really well deserved win. That was a great job by him, and yeah, if there's one thing I'd change, I guess I'd stop saving just a little bit earlier. But man, I put it all out on the track there, and that was an absolute blast.
It was definitely an absolute blast, I'm sure, for both of you, and it definitely was for us in the booth covering it. Brandon, you kind of covered everything there, so I'll just kind of give you the floor of everybody that helps make this possible for you and your team.
Sure, of course. You guys on the broadcast, you guys do an awesome job every week. Yeah, great win to Steven. That was a fantastic race, and there's so many others was able to battle with throughout the entire race. that was some great stuff. And yeah, just like to shout out Racing Prodigy. We're heading to New Orleans in about a week and a half to go real life racing, and if you want to get in on the action, I believe their GR86 time trials are still up for a very limited time, so if you want to get in on that on iRacing, and man, yeah, just absolutely fantastic battle there. Man, just one position short, but I can't be upset with that. That was an absolutely fantastic race. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, and see you guys next week.
A little birdie told me something about Homestead Miami Speedway in February. Are you expected to be here?
Oh, I'm not sure if I'm able to speak on that, but yeah, well, definitely we got some Florida in there for sure. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll see what tracks we go to, but you know what? Yeah, Homestead could be one of them. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of really fantastic tracks that we're going to, and man, yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, if you do find yourself in the 305, make sure you let us know. We definitely know the spots you want to take us to. Thank you for your time, Brandon, and we hope to see you out here next week.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll hit you up on that, and yeah, thank you guys.
Well, I hope there, Francisco, we didn't spoil any plans there for Hawken. I was just trying to get a little more info on Prodigy 3, the Prodigy Racing League that they're hosting, and Hawken is a part of that, and going real-life racing at New Orleans Motorsports Park late in November.
I mean, if you found some information on it, that means there's definitely some potential truth to it, and it's definitely public.
if you see a KBRN meetup at Homestead, Miami with Brandon Hawkins sometime down the line, then you'll thank us later.
We need the merch.
Probably need the merch, but we'll tune in to 4th place Jaden Porter. Unfortunately, we cannot get word with Ethan Fonseca Moreno. He's got a situation with the bathroom he's dealing with, but we're going to talk to the driver of the number 28 Chevrolet. Jaden, we mentioned you in the pre-race, and I was talking to Keelan prior to us going live on KBRN, and he mentioned to me that there seems to be a good luck charm with who we interview on the DTH pre-race show, a bad luck charm for who we interview as the in-race reporter. For you, you had the DTH pre-race show with us, and you finished 4th. What was your night like from Chicagoland?
It was a crazy night, to say the least. I did the same mistake I did last week and qualified bad outside the top 20. And the first 40 laps, to say the least, were a grind. It was very hard to pass. I never want to start 24th at a tight setup racetrack because it was insane to pass, but we worked our way all up to 4th. Don't really know why a lot of guys pitted before the pit window opened. Kind of screwed them up, so just happy to get 4th.
And in this race, I mean, you had a good amount to deal with, especially you and Moreno having to work through the mid-pack specifically, where you talked about it, really hard to pass with the dirty air and the different lines you had to run. How did you guys finagle the strategy in order to get what you guys wanted out of it, get the race cars in the right place, and make sure the tires were in the right place as well to move up through the top 5 and make the runs you did?
Yeah, that was honestly the hardest part, was keeping the tires on and trying to get through traffic, because dirty air was, it was miserable. That was terrible. So you just had to really run like a different line than others. Sometimes you had to let the car in front of you get on the gas before you did. And we just found our way through. Ethan was a little bit faster than me. He was good like the whole run. I couldn't be good the last 10-ish laps. I'd just lose a lot of time to them. So Ethan just had straight up pace, and I kind of got through with tire wear and a couple of those guys at the end pitting before the pit window opened.
So now we move on from Chicagoland. We go to another short track race, this time at New Hampshire. Any preemptive thoughts about that, or how you're going to prepare for the race?
I hate that place. It's
All
a
right.
parking lot.
You know what? That's a good description of it. Lots of people have that.
Yeah, I hate it. Sometimes I run good, sometimes I run really bad. So I'm hoping I run pretty decent. Hopefully I have a little bit longer run speed than I did today, but hopefully we'll be able to continue our good luck and run top 10, top 5-ish again next week.
Well, Jaden, it was a fun time watching you move up through the field with Moreno and try to weave your way into the top 5 like you guys did. I'm pretty sure as it stands, you still are the 4-wide points leader by overall standings with all of the consistent finishes still in this top 10 streak. I see where it's going. Jaden, before we let you go, anybody in particular you want to thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone at KBueno Racing, all my teammates, Steven, Ethan, other Steven, he had to leave mid-race, unfortunately, but also, don't let Ethan lie to you. He did not go to the bathroom. He went to bed.
All right.
That's what
Wow,
he told me.
okay, so we have a Paul Pierce.
Yeah, he went to bed. He did not go to the bathroom. That's what I was told.
You know what? Sometimes drivers don't feel it. Sometimes I respect it. I don't know why he gave us that reason instead of telling us to go to bed, but nonetheless, thank you for telling us. We were sort of wondering why he wasn't joining us in the VC. But Jaden, we really appreciate the time. Congratulations on the 4th place finish, and looking forward to New Hampshire next week.
All right, thank you guys.
That's Jaden Porter, who comes away 4th. Wow, Francisco, looks like he lied to the team owners. Do we have to punish him for that?
Wow. I guess so. We're gonna have to give him the 4th best car next week.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with Moreno there, but it's 3rd place for him. Porter in 4th, Brandon Hawken and Steven Maggio. And those are the drivers we talked to 1st, 2nd, and 4th place here from Chicagoland Speedway. What a race it was, specifically in those final 20 laps, Francisco. We anticipated a bit of the strategy in the first half, but then when the cautions came out, maybe some concerns about what could happen there, but this might go down as either one of the best Chicagoland races in history of this series or one of the best races of this season, period.
It definitely is going to be one of the best races of all season. I mean, we only had 3 caution flags in the entirety of the evening. One of them, of course, was our phantom debris yellow. Thank you, Tyler Murray, for that one. But just apart from that, there was not that many in total, and they were pretty strung together. So most of the race was all continuous green flag action, and We saw green flag pit stops to end the race and give us that strategy to the end of the race, and I think that really is what played a role in that fantastic finish. Just the long run, the tire saving aspect, it really was able to show out the skill between Steven Maggio and Brandon Hawken on that run, and ultimately it was what gave Ethan Fonseca Moreno a shot to get his best finish of the season, his first podium finish of this season 7. And Tyler Murray has updated the points, Kenneth, and just kind of quickly looking at it here, Jaden Porter keeps the points lead. It is now 20 points over Kyle Benson, and I think more crucially, Curtis Kelly maintains the third place spot. He's 31 behind Porter, but there's a huge gap back to Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who's moved his way up to 4th. In spite of his bad start to the season, Kenneth, he is 4th in points. He is 59 points behind Jaden Porter, and just 1 point behind Moreno is both Alexander and Peel. So it is pretty tight when you look at 4th all the way down to about 9th of Nicholas Baumann. There's 8 points between 4th and 9th in the standings right now, as Maggio has found his way back into the top 10 in the standings with his second win of the season.
That'll come handy when we get deeper in the regular season. We start talking about who will and who will not make the 4-wide playoffs this season. But if everyone's that close right now, we could only anticipate how much closer it'll get as we dive into the season further. New Hampshire is our next track, another short track affair, this time in the Northeast. And like Jaden Porter said, some drivers may have some reservations about how that track races and how they perform there. We have several different series veterans that have won there. AJ Green, Joe Sanchez, could see those two Titans clash again, or we could see a brand new W holder there in New Hampshire Motor Speedway in 1 week time. So that'll come your way November 13th, next Wednesday. That'll be at 8:40 p.m. Eastern for the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show, then at 9:05 p.m. Eastern for the green flag here on the KBueno Racing Network. We have Charlotte, Atlanta, Martinsville, Talladega, Darlington, Kansas that leads us all the way to the All-Star break at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We'll have all that coverage for you as the year ends and we progress to 2025. It's already been 7 weeks throughout the season, but we still got a long, long way to go deep into late May of next year when we crown our champion at the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. That'll do it for us here on our coverage of race number 7 in this 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series affair from Chicagoland Speedway. For Tyler Murray and the entire admin council at 4-Wide Racing, for Charlie Beyer at the KBueno Racing Network, and for my broadcast crew tonight, my colleagues Francisco Bacalao and Keelan Belsha, and for all of it, I'm Kenneth Bueno, waving so long from Joliet, Illinois. A big congratulations to the rookie Steven Maggio on his second W of the 4-Wide season. We'll see you in New Hampshire next Wednesday.